All right. I'm getting tired of computer programs talking at me like they know me or something, you know? Like, you know how when you go to a website, you got to register? First of all, that's gross. Second of all, it's like, what's your email address? And you type like the letter T, and then immediately the whole window turns just like blood red, like you're being attacked by a hacker in a 1990s movie. And there's about to be a laughing skull .gif on the screen. It just goes blood red and says, please enter a valid email address.
Yeah.
Right? Like some Dalek from Doctor Who, you know? I don't like that, number one. Number two,
No.
I came over here to Discord. I joined the call and I was starting up my audio processing software that lets me do this. Not that I'm going to be doing that too much.
You might.
But I started it. I'm starting it up and I'm like, oh, it takes a couple of seconds, right? It takes a couple of seconds for it to activate and fully start up. And during those couple of seconds, Discord just went completely all red. And it said, we are not detecting input from your microphone. And then it popped up a pop-up that was like, do you need help getting your microphone? And I clicked no, and then dismiss. And then it popped it up again like 1 second later. And I'm just like, this is driving me bonko. So that's where I'm feeling right now. Now we got Craig in here. Can I just not hide Craig? Craig is, for those listening, this is the show, I guess. Craig is... he's a Discord bot that will record your calls with separated audio tracks. Wait, can I?
Anyway, I wonder if does disable video do it?
No, he's just there.
Doesn't.
He's just there. So it's he has just this big ugly blue color background that I have a huge monitor because see so good, etc. And I would rather have it just be the people on the call and not this little we don't care about our branding kind of artwork of some bear with a microphone.
Yeah.
Because he's not, why has he got a microphone? He's not on this call. He's not a host.
No.
He's not important. He's not doing the hard work of talking into a microphone about video games for 1 hour. 1 hour? Is that what we got?
Yeah, I think that's what we'll try to do. How many games you got?
Everybody knows the hard part of this podcast is not talking about video games, because for me, that's very easy. The hard part of this podcast, I was going to joke about it's dragging and dropping some Kurt Feldman waves into a Adobe Premiere timeline. That's the hard part. Kurt Feldman does all the work. And for me, talking about video games, it's nothing. This is nothing. Like, you might as well be asking me to take a dump, right? I didn't make any music for this. Making a single track of music is more forethought than I think anybody else ever has put into this show.
Jeffy puts a little in there.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit.
Should we do an intro?
Yeah, why not? I don't care. Hello and welcome back to Video Games. You are listening to number 326 of the Insert Credit Audio Magazine, issue 326. We don't have to call it that forever.
Oh, we could call it for a while. And I guess this episode, Tim and I are going to talk about games that didn't make it into the Game of the Year thing. I do kind of think that maybe if I had been a little less mentally exhausted, I might have put some of the games that were more interesting to talk about but less good onto the list instead of... probably, especially instead of Sonic. I probably would have kept Hi-Fi Rush, even though you didn't like it, because I do think Frank would like it, and it felt appropriate.
We think Frank would like it. Frank is dead right now, so he's not here.
No,
that's not true. He's not dead.
He also used up all 2 of his games that he played during the event, or the 3. I forget how many it was, 2 or 3.
Yeah, it was a low enough number that it is not certain which prime number it was.
That's right.
But it was a very small one.
Tim, how many games do you have remaining to talk about?
I mean, not that many. I can kind of talk about this just this 2023 in general, I guess. I mean, there's a couple on here.
Because I got 19. If we want to just like go back and forth.
I got 30 some. But I mean, yeah, whatever. Let's just hear one. Let's throw one out there.
All right. Well, I was going to start with Little Goody Two Shoes, which is a game. I don't know if you played that one.
No, I don't know what that is.
That's a game that sure looks nice. It's basically like a kind of spooky Magic Knight Rayearth for Saturn like, but with no combat. It's really got
look at this.
It's got great graphicisms. You choose which dates to go on with people.
I saw this.
And you have to lower suspicion about whether you're a witch, and you do work every day, which takes the form of mini games. But then I got insta-killed and lost tons of time because of manual saving, and I stopped playing it. And apparently the puzzles get real tough later. But it was one of those things where like I played, and then I got into like an area that I had to be clever to find. And in there, I got insta-killed and lost 20 minutes of progress. And I was like, well, this game does not respect me.
20 minutes is a lot of progress to you?
It's not a lot of progress in general, but when you are trying to bust through video games before the end of the year, it felt like it. I will try to return to this because it seems to have some neat ideas. And it's like little clamp-looking ladies dating other little clamp-looking ladies. And it just seems like it's a fun idea, but yeah, it just it made me mad, and I didn't keep playing. That's what happened.
Yeah, I'm looking. I saw this game. Somebody was talking about it and asked if I'd played it or whatever. I saw this game, and according to Wikipedia, the developer Astral Shift are based in Portugal.
Yes,
they were influenced by Japanese cartoons targeting young women from the 1990s, including Sailor Moon, Magic Knight Rayearth, and Slayers.
Yeah.
A little bit of a caveat there. The Sailor Moon cartoon famously was more targeted at men than the manga, which was more targeted at women.
That's true.
It was a little more, well, I mean, it wasn't totally targeted at men, but it was it's definitely...
They moved the slider a little bit.
Yeah, they pushed it a bit.
And I will say that this game definitely has the, how should I say, the Latin language-based speaking country that likes anime vibe, which there are several of.
I like that.
Which isn't bad. It is just interesting that is becoming a distinct thing that one can recognize, like Valhalla and other games out there that have unsighted.
Oh, I'm only just now realizing that you pronounce that Valhalla. I thought it was, you're supposed to read the numbers. That's a joke.
Va11 Hall -A.
Va11 Hall -A. Yeah.
So anyway,
this game looks pretty chill. It truly does look like Legend of Mana, and it has that kind of like grimy, in a good way, sort of like weird, kind of blurry, filtered.
Yeah, I think graphics. That I suspect you won't like the filter after you play a little while.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
that was actually one of the first things I thought. I was like, this filter is interesting. Having seen it, I could now do without it.
Yeah, now that I own a RetroTink 4K and I play my Mr. games upscaled from 240p to a flawless 4K, and I have access to all of these insane artisanal scanline filters that work in HDR, I can't chill with the super blurry looking stuff. But I mean, there is, I can't chill with a lot of these fake filters in some of these retro compilations. I mean, I remember getting a little bit too upset at Yoshiro Kimura and his buddies when they chose to have Moon look the way it did.
Yeah,
I was like, why can't you just make it look hot instead of whatever this is supposed to be? I mean, I don't know. I just think you can make stuff look hot. It's cool. Literally, you have to buy a Mister if you want to play any of those arcade games, the MAME games, in a way that doesn't have that weird baked-in MAME filter. I would still chill with this, though.
Yeah, you should. Give it a shot. I'm going to finish it later. This is one of the ones on my list to finish later. There's a bunch of these games, actually, I do plan to finish despite them not making the list. So, what's one you got?
Overwhelmingly positive. Well, I mean, we can get through this one pretty fast. Did you play that Lies of P game?
I did. Yeah.
Okay, so...
And when I say I did, I mean, I played it for like 45 minutes.
45 minutes is probably enough to get the idea.
Yeah.
It's, there's a thing to it. Why are there so many like film directors who've wanted to make a Pinocchio movie, first of all?
Yeah.
Why does that keep happening?
They love
Have you
lying.
ever seen Roberto Benigni's Pinocchio film? Guy won these Academy Awards for this Life is Beautiful movie, which sucks, by the way. And then he turns right around and makes this Pinocchio thing. Yeah. And it's just this insane. It is incredibly awful. I don't know if you even know about this movie.
More like Robert Panini.
Yeah, exactly. More like should eat a panini instead of making movies is what his name should be.
Hot from the grill, this guy.
Yeah, so it's I mean there's been a lot of Pinocchio movies. There was recently a live action Disney Pinocchio. Walt Disney himself was obsessed with Pinocchio. Guillermo del Toro makes a Pinocchio. I love the idea of a Pinocchio video game that is kind of picking up the torch from the mud puddle where it was dropped into by American McGee's Alice long ago when American McGee disappeared from existence. Turned into smoke.
Yeah.
I mean, Pinocchio is a pretty dark story, having recently rewatched the Disney film. So it's a morose, a morbid, kind of crushing Pinocchio atmosphere with bosses and such, surprisingly based on characters from the story, which is, I guess, that is to the delight of some aspiring film director who's going to make a Pinocchio adaptation inspired by this game in 50 years or so. Pinocchio is an old man's game, in case you didn't know that. It's an artist gets old and he begins thinking of himself as Geppetto. And Roberto Benigni, having a Peter Pan complex, began thinking of himself as Pinocchio.
Wants to be a real boy. Which
is weird. And he played Pinocchio with some perspective trickery. And I wish I had not watched that movie, but I did. And now everybody listening to this has to deal with it. Lies of P, I think it's the first From Software Dark Souls-like that indicates to me that someday somebody's going to get it, you know?
Yeah.
Someday somebody's going to get it, because there's an inimitable thing about a From Software game where it is just kind of turkey basted with the jank of like the legacy of AA video games, of underloved PS1, PS2 games. That sort of jank, they've basted a Dark Souls with that. They've glazed it. Charles, they've glazed it. Lies of P seems to kind of get that, but also just it kind of wasn't super exciting to me.
Yeah, I haven't played all of these Souls likes, but this feels like the one that was most directly targeting the Bloodborne style versus the
certainly, yeah.
And I thought that was good. Killing tin soldiers is kind of weird and strange thing to do.
More interesting than zombies, I guess.
Certainly. And one thing I didn't find out is whether his nose gets big later.
Yeah, I'll leave that up to the listener to determine. Yeah. A little treat for you should you decide to experience Lies of P. And the last thing I have to say about this game, which is I think the last thing that the history books will say about this game, when eventually the last history book is written, the last sentence in the history book about video games it will say that it's one of the worst titles I've ever seen a video game have.
It's up there.
I mean, I don't want to rabbit hole too deep into the thought experiment. What's the worst video game title? But it's like, oh, that one's real bad. I don't want to play a video game, watch a movie, watch a TV show, read a book, engage with any creative thing called Lies of P.
Yeah.
Even another name.
But I do think its badness made it unique to where nobody could forget it. So there is that.
That is true. What else can you say, Charles?
Indeed.
You know? Anyway, that's all I have to say about Lies of P. Fine game. Not really. It's a fine game. Whatever.
Yeah, it's a fine game. All right, here's one. Thirsty Suitors. I played it.
Oh, T-Suit.
I think it's got a fun graphic and a fun concept, and it's definitely an Annapurna-like, being an Annapurna game. But I just don't like the writing at all. I think the story is fine, but it's another one of those games where like everyone's kind of mean to each other.
Oh yeah.
And it doesn't really contextually make sense to me. I think one of my issues is that it's sort of trying to tackle a similar subject to Night in the Woods, of returning to a desolate hometown. But it doesn't do it nearly as well. Like, I tell you what, this dying town, I only found out that the town was dying through some voiceover because the downtown is full of people, lots of small local shops, incredible diversity, young people everywhere. Everyone is somewhere interesting on the gender or sexuality spectrum. It's basically like a utopia, and they're like, oh, this town,
but it's dying.
It's dying. And it's like, but I've never seen a town so full of young people, so vibrant, that was dying. I just don't buy it.
People like that, vibrant young people, usually are perfectly fine just moving somewhere else.
Indeed.
When the situation, they could all join together, start a circus.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would do.
Well, they do join together and start a weird thing in a abandoned park that becomes a skate park for them, and there's like maybe a cult or something. But the skating, I don't really know why the skating was there, and there's lots of QTEs for battles and conversations and cooking, and the RPG battles are kind of amusing, but they're quite long, and so the amusement sort of runs out. So it felt like a big grab bag of ideas, some of which were good, but it just didn't all shake together in the bag. It didn't gel into something in there. This
is on my list of stuff to play. I own it. I purchased it.
Well, it's pretty easy to get through.
As it goes violently against my scruples to purchase a thing published by Annapurna Interactive, who are my true enemies. They're not my enemies. I think it's neat when something's grab-bagulous, as this is. Mm-hmm. I'm just flipping through the images and videos on Steam.
No, it's a neat idea, and the concept of, everybody wants to date you, kind of. Your parents want you to date somebody, kind of. It all kind of works, but because all the battles are relationship based, sometimes you have to just like manipulate other people by being mean to them and make them break up or whatever. And it just does not sit well with me. I guess it's not the tone that I thought this game was going to have. I thought it was going to be lighter and friendlier rather than like harass these two people until they break up, which it's a little weird.
My only problem, quote unquote, problem with what I know about the game is I don't really like the title. I think Thirsty Suitors. It sounds kind of stupid. I think that's my only problem. No offense to anybody who wrote that title who's listening to this episode.
Yeah, I also want to say no offense to anybody who worked on this game, because I think it's a cool idea. It just
we may or may not have a few people who worked on this game listening to this show.
I think we might.
I think the word thirsty is any day now. What with the way slang turns over, thirsty is going to refer to the way I feel right now, not the way I felt 20 years ago. You know what I mean?
I do.
I'm talking about, I'm holding a Coca-Cola Zero up to the microphone while I say this.
I took a drink of water as you said the word thirsty, because I was like, oh.
Because you hear the word thirsty.
Speak of the heckin' devil.
People of my generation, when we hear the word thirsty, we start thinking about water.
Yep.
Right? And I see this video game. I don't see anybody drinking any beverage at all. I'm flipping through all the images. I see some food. I don't see any beverages.
That's
Nobody's
right.
drinking anything.
Where's the drinks? There's some drinks in there, but it's
also I don't see a single article of bespoke menswear in this game. So who's doing all the suiting? I don't see I don't see any Savile Row tailors hanging out in here.
That's a good point. There are some guys that show up in suits. There's a couple.
Well, we got to put a spoiler warning at the beginning of this episode now.
Okay. Okay.
A suitor warning.
All right, you got one?
Yeah, all right. I'm going to go ahead and say one. We don't really need to talk about this in too much.
Uh-huh.
Because what is there to say about this one that I'm about to mention? What is there to say aside from I played it, I don't care, right? And that game is it's a little game called Blasphemous 2. You know Blasphemous?
I do know Blasphemous. I did not get super far in the first one, and then I didn't try the second one. That was my experience.
The second one, if you're like me, has got graphics like whoa.
Oh, it's got graphics. I've seen those.
In my opinion, which is correct in this room. Mm-hmm. This is just this is what your pixel art games should look like.
Sure.
And if you're going to make one and you want me to play it,
it's got ideas in it, which is neat. Not everybody has those.
It's got some nice little kind of sticky, meticulous, persnickety, persnicatorious movement and action technical mechanics in it. As far as Metroidvanias go, now I know a guy who played like 42, 44 Metroidvanias in the year 2023.
Oh, yeah.
And this was one of his favorite ones, and it also happened to come out that year. So just shouting that buddy out. That's a joke. That's me, of course.
I figured.
But I liked this one. Whatever. When you sit down with a bunch of Metroidvanias and you intend to play them for a couple hours each, it's basically and you're more or less getting paid for it. It's like getting paid to eat macaroni and cheese. They're the macaroni and cheese of video games.
Yeah.
And this one's a little bit more. It's a little bit more of a meal.
Yeah, it's got the breadcrumbs on the top.
And it just makes, it's got the breadcrumbs. It's been baked in an oven. It just kind of makes me feel like, by all means, developers of the world, by all goddarn means, go ahead, keep making these. Keep making Metroidvanias. It's fine, right?
I agree.
It's fine.
I agree.
Anyway, that's all I have time for. Read that one.
Well, I might as well continue along a similar line there and talk about The Last Faith. I don't know if you played that one.
Oh yeah, I played The Last Faith.
That's another Souls-like Vania, similar to Blasphemous. It was all right, and I'll probably get through it because it is a Metroidvania, or an Igavania maybe, or a Soulsvania, which people are starting to say, which I don't know about. But anywho,
yeah, it's dangerous.
It has a few things that really bugged me. One was the first boss, which gave really annoying bad visual info. So it does an attack that sends a wave of broken earth that looks like spikes. The jagged earth stays behind the wave. You would think you can't stand in those. And so I died a bunch of times because I was trying to hit this boss while avoiding all of that. But it turns out it's only the front of the wave that hurts you, which disappears. And then all these jagged things are there and it's fine to walk on them. And I died 15 times before looking it up to find that out, which is not cool.
I think there's just a little too much graphics in this game.
Yeah.
Like the ground plane bothers me, looking kind of like a brawler ground plane, right? There's like too much dimensionality to it.
Yeah.
And also, this is how I don't love pixel art that looks like that.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm fine with it.
Whereas Blasphemous 2 is more dead on. It's more orthographic and I don't know, more legible to me.
The Blasphemous 2 cares a lot more about resolution as well, I feel.
Oh, yeah.
So this was a good example of kind of why I did stop playing the game is, even though this happens at the beginning, I couldn't let go of it. So there are two boxes that have visible, usable things. R2 uses your left hand, and L2 uses your item, which is on the right. So R2, it flashes a button that's visually on the left, and L2 flashes, an icon, and L2 flashes an item which is visibly on the right. And it's just like, why would you?
It's a mind bender.
That's so straightforward. Like, it's just the thing on the right is on the right, the thing on the left is on the left. Just do it, you know?
Maybe it's not mirror imaged. I don't know. Who knows? It's like watching a video feed instead of a mirror image. There's got to be some logic to it. A decision must have been made by somebody.
Or maybe it wasn't. And that was my biggest fear, that a decision wasn't made. I think the decision was that R2 is better to use a weapon with, which they decided should be in your left hand, a sub-weapon. And so they did that. But why did they? And maybe they put it in first. I don't know. Why did they put it on the left? It doesn't make sense. But anyway, right, because it's your left hand, but you hit it with the right trigger. So, like, I don't know. Anyway,
very first review on Steam: solid Metroidvania, not quite as good as Blasphemous.
That's right.
There we go. That's the very first.
It's true.
A very Bloodborne-inspired Metroidvania game.
I think the thing that I have discovered about Vanias is I'd rather not have to go back and retrieve my stuff after I die. That's a part of the Souls like that I just don't think is good in here, because you can die on some spikes and then you can't get your stuff. Like,
let me give you a good tip for Elden Ring. If you ever play Elden Ring, just equip yourself with this for years in advance of ever possibly playing it. Just don't go get your stuff.
All right.
You don't have to. You don't have to. In fact, that kind of unlocks a brain superpower in the Souls games in general. When you learn that you don't have to go get your stuff, the game's just kind of telling you to let go of it. You keep the items. If you find items, you keep those. You just lose your money.
Okay.
Right. So if you find a cool sword, you don't drop the cool sword. So you can run, get a cool sword, and then die, and then now you have a sword that's unique and it's nowhere else in the game, and you don't need to go back there and get your money.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
That money wouldn't have been able to even buy that sword.
I get you.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. I feel like if anyone listening to this podcast is working on a Souls-like video game, keep that in mind as well, because I've played a couple. I'm not going to say how many I played in 2023, but I've played a couple, and a lot of them don't really seem to. They seem to think that that's like a hook. They seem to think every single aspect you can break out of an analysis of a Souls game is like in itself a hook. And it's like, what if it's not?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
What if not everything is a hook? That would be anyway. I've chosen another game to continue here in
Let's
sort
do
of a
it.
trend to get a couple of these out of the way. That Metroid Prime remaster for the Nintendo Switch. I know it's not a new game, but I played the whole thing, and I know we've had some philosophical discussions on this show in the past. Mostly, I believe Frank Cifaldi is the most interested in this as a philosophical discussion of what's the difference between a remaster and a remake.
Yeah.
In recent years, the Resident Evil 4 remake, that's a remake, right? The one that came out this year.
Yeah.
The Metroid Prime remaster is not a remake according to the modern understanding, but it is a completely remade game. It is not the original game at all. It's completely remade, looks completely different, new graphics, new everything. It doesn't use the old assets or whatever. There's a Digital Foundry video you can watch that breaks this all down. It is a remake, but it's exactly the same game. So I think there needs to be a third word to describe that.
Yeah.
And I would call it a replication. So there you go. It's a replica.
Upresplication.
A replica. A replica.
I purchased it with the intention of playing it, but then ran out of time, and I will play it. I intend to, and I'll let y'all know what I think later.
I'll make a suggestion that I've made for people who I know personally who
don't turn on the auto. I mean, keep the auto aim on.
I mentioned this to you. I mentioned this to people on my stream.
Yeah,
I've mentioned it on this podcast before. Why not mention it again? The auto lock on is so important to the fabric of the game. The original game did not have right analog stick aiming at all, and it came out right after Halo, and everyone considered it a baby's toy. But now, hopefully, with 20-some years of hindsight, we can all see that Shigeru Miyamoto, coaching Retro Studios, was kind of onto something. And having the right analog stick aiming and the really, really aggressive lock-on when you squeeze that left trigger kind of creates sort of a singular video game. It's neat.
Yeah, seems good.
I like it.
I'm gonna give it a shoot.
So yeah, I had a good old time with that game.
All right, here's one. I don't know if you're gonna feel the same way about this, but the shambling corpse of Star Ocean continues apace with the second story R.
Second story R. Mm-hmm.
So I played it for a while. My very first thought was, why are these sprites? Why are the sprites? Why are they super deformed? The world is so fully 3D that it actually feels jarring. And that's speaking as a guy who usually likes mixing of sprites and 3D to...
Yeah.
I like it when it's done to interesting effect, and it's not here. And it's like, why can't I move the camera in a town, but I can on the map? What's that for? Even if you change your name, they still say the original name of your character regardless in the VO. It's very slow paced. The combat is very simplistic at first. Moving is super slow. Classic dialogue where nobody really talks to each other. Even if you choose the lady as the protagonist and you're like beating everyone up because you're super strong, you still always get captured and whatever. I don't know. I found the game too mild, too slow, and I don't know if they know what they're doing with that Star Ocean anymore.
Yeah, there's a couple things to say about this. Everybody I've ever known who has been like really nostalgic about Star Ocean 2 is I mean, they're the same type of person, right? I mean, I'm not going to describe what type of person that is, but there's a type of RPG fan who's like, yeah, PlayStation was all about Star Ocean 2, dude. And it's like, Star Ocean 2's okay. It's a weird little RPG for PlayStation. Star Ocean 1, famously by Enix for Super Famicom, had, I think it was the biggest cartridge, or was that Tales of Fantasia?
I'm not sure, but
I think it was
one
Tales
of
of Fantasia. One of them, they had the biggest ROM size of any game because they had so much voices on there, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had a crazy amount of voices and music samples and whatnot. It's almost as though, you know, based on what I know, which I'm no Star Ocean encyclopedarian, but I think Star Ocean feels kind of like a video game series that was made as an excuse for testing that ROM technology. How many voices can we fit in a thing? What would it be like to make a game with voices? Hey, CD-based consoles are going to be big real soon. We should see what we can do with building a pipeline for recording VO and just make a video game to... I don't know, right? Like it just kind of seems like Star Ocean's a very tech demo-esque RPG. The first one is, and then the second one, it's a curious little kind of. I played the heck out of it on the PS1, despite not chilling with it like immediately when I first started playing it. I didn't super vibe with it when it first came out because I was a Final Fantasy VII boy and I'd played Suikoden at that point, and it was just like most of the bets were off.
Yeah.
And I think it's a pretty good game, and I could go into a lot of detail on what's pretty good about it, but I would rather say that I think this remake is hokey as heck.
Yeah.
And I think it's time, and I don't know if I've mentioned this recently on a podcast or anything, but I think it's time for that HD 2D 2D HD tilt shift blurry background, wide aperture lens, bloomed out sort of graphical pixel style of Square Enix games to just go home.
Mm-hmm.
I think it should just go home. And this game isn't even HD 2D, right? It isn't even that. It's
no, it's not. Some other inexplicable thing.
It's like, did you play or see or otherwise engage with Star Ocean: The Divine Force, which came out last year?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit, and that one I feel like
it was cool as heck.
Yeah, I liked that game.
Yeah,
like each one of these Star Oceans does have one thing to it. Like the Divine Force, the thing was that weird movement. Just the way you can move around the world is neat and strange.
They went for it.
And unfortunately, in this game, the thing was HD 2D, and that was it.
Yeah.
It wasn't much of anything.
The HD 2D, while being a bit irksome, just on principle, 4K 120 on a 77-inch OLED, it does look neat, but not in a way that helps the game. It looks neat in a way that makes me be like, man, I sure would love some cool games.
Yeah, I feel like
I sure would love to play some cool games right now. It just makes me excited about cool games generally.
If I were the purveyors of the Star Ocean and I were to get funded for an additional Star Ocean, which frankly looks unlikely to me, but if that were to happen, I would do one where the story starts real fast and moves real fast,
and then kind of makes some sense as it gets toward the end of the first act.
Yeah, like something where it just really just tumbles along and brings you along for the ride, so that you're
find the guy who invented the yellow paint that they've been putting on the walls in video games.
Yeah, get that guy on the job.
Get him to come in, drop him in the middle of the first act of the story, and ask him, does this make sense to you?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And then that's how you'll know. You need the yellow paint guy to figure out what's
YPG.
To workshop your stories a little bit. They've got a problem with that. Star Ocean: The Divine Force is like, it's got kind of a Star Trek Prime Directive, Kingdom Hearts, hard to be a god sort of thing going on about it, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
But then it's just buried under so much tropey trash that it's like it's a little bit of an unfortunateness.
These days I'm kind of like, you know what, hit me over the head with the idea. Let's go straight into the idea zone. We don't need to surround it with fluff.
They literally do that in the Yakuza games.
Absolutely.
Like the games are about how annoying it is to leave bicycles on the street.
That's right.
That's the plot of one of them. I don't even remember which one, but the plot is that we need to get these bicycles parked correctly.
Yeah,
because the Yakuza have some sort of real estate scam involving bike parking spaces in their Kabukicho.
What's your next one?
I'm never gonna not call it Kabukicho. I'm never gonna call it what they call it in those games. I can't do it, even casually.
I call it Kamurocho because it is also the name of a boba place in Dublin, California. And I asked the elderly proprietress where she got the name, and she's like, "Oh, my kids named it for me."
Very good. Very good.
It's good.
I guarantee you it ain't no boba in Kabukicho.
No.
I mean, maybe there is. I don't know. There's very few bobas in Tokyo as of my most recent visit.
They don't have a lot of it.
It's not necessarily what you go and look for. The best boba I ever had in Tokyo was in Omotesando, and it had so little sugar in it. It was just like almost no sugar. What was I talking about?
Your next one.
Oh, yeah, we can go ahead and toss another one of these on the Barbie. I might as well just throw this one on there since we just talked about an RPG, and then my previous one was a Nintendo Switch game. I'm trying to connect to these somehow.
All right.
Did you play that Fire Emblem Engage?
I didn't.
Oh, it's the new Fire Emblem.
But I think the thing that surprised me the most is it's been almost 20 years, maybe 18 years since they discontinued the N-Gage. So, like,
oh, very good. Yeah.
How did they get this on there at the end?
They got it on there. Fire Emblem Engage, another video game series that has shed its numbers since time immemorial. We no one alive could tell you what number Fire Emblem Engage would be.
Yeah, how many Fire Emblems there's been.
If you numbered it. Nobody could figure it out. There's no way. That's a joke about how somebody clearly could go to Wikipedia and count them all if they wanted to. But they don't number. They've never numbered these games, which is cool. They've never numbered them. So that's how it's literally impossible to tell how many there are. This one was cool, but I was just very recently reviewing my captured footage, like from a part of this game for like a thing that I was looking at. And first of all, I was like, wow, this game looks really nice. The cutscenes look really nice. Everything's really, really nicely done. The presentation is out of this world. Nintendo Intelligent Systems are pulling off a full, this is not a backhanded compliment. They're pulling off a full Atlas Persona grade user interface, user experience. I mean, in Fire Emblem Three Houses and in Fire Emblem Engage, they both have this really Atlas-like attention to detail lavished all over the user experience in a way that's really nice. But I'm watching, I was just like scrubbing through the footage as I do in Adobe Premiere. I don't, you reach a certain point in your life. I'm too old to just click play on a video anymore. I got to throw it in Adobe Premiere and scrub through it with my mouse. I watched a movie that way the other day. I mean, it's a movie I'd seen a million times. It's like, ooh, let's look at this scene, scrub around back and forth, just twitching my mouse back and forth, watching something. So I was scrubbing through and I was like, this game looks good. And then I went ahead and clicked play, and the Nintendo Switch, they need a Nintendo Switch too, like yesterday, dude.
Yeah.
Like the frame rate is just like, there is just diarrhea, just old faithfuling out the diaper leg holes. Like, I mean, it is blowing frames like diarrhea out its dipey leggy holes. And it's just like, come on, guys. It's kind of pathetic. But, the game itself, fine. It's a fine game.
Mm-hmm. Although I do have a bit of it troubles me, the continued waifuification of the Fire Emblem series. I feel like it's starting to get to where it's a little more embarrassing for me to play something like that than to play a straight up pornographic video game. Yeah,
there'd be some girly sounds in this Fire Emblem Awakening. There'd be some girly sounds. There's several oh my words per hour while playing this game. Mm-hmm. But I had a good time with it. Main character design is wild. Looks like Ronald McDonald meets what's that guy's name? What's that guy's name from My Hero Academia? I know his name. I'm pretending I don't. It's this weird looking main character, which you can also play. You can also choose to be a weird looking girl. Todoroki. I know. Ronald, where he's got like Superman curls in his hair that cross in the front.
Yeah.
And then spoilers, you're the reincarnation of an ancient dragon, which is cool. But he's got red on one side, blue on the other, and they're the most Ronald McDonald's Happy Meal, like shades of their respective color. That viewed on a 77-inch OLED is a little bit nauseationulous. Nauseatulous.
And you can play as the lady version, which just has.
I was about to say, or you can play as a badly designed lady.
What do you call those desk things that where you have one ball and you drop it and it knocks the other one? You know what I'm talking about?
Newton's Cradle.
Yeah, Newton's Cradle. Anyway,
the versions of them on the box art actually looks cool.
A lady version with Newton's cradulous boobs that are just knocking into each other and jiggling all over the place.
Newton's cradulous. Yeah, so you can. So the punchline of this is you can play as this weird looking Todoroki Ronald McDonald, or a girl with weird hair and big old breastulous. It's but otherwise a fine game for fans of strategy.
That's right.
If you're those who enjoy the strategy in their video games would do well to pick up Fire Emblem Engage. Can I just stop with the Fire Emblem and can I just super glue the Advance Wars remaster onto this?
Oh, sure.
It's all the same stuff that I said about the strategy, and it's all the same stuff I said about the diarrhea blowing out the diarrhea. Old faithful geysering blowing out the sides of the diaper leg holes.
Yeah, that game seemed to be overlooked by everyone.
Yeah. It has some aesthetic choices to it that I would have enjoyed if the game had been a rock solid 60 FPS, but being 12, 14, 6, 20, like whatever, like struggling to run this minimalist graphical style. I believe that game was made in Unity as well. They need to switch too. But also it's, I got it and I was like, maybe I don't want to play Advance Wars again.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, it's a fine game though for fans of strategy and such.
Those maps are so long, and you gotta be in the mood to do a half hour to an hour of a tactics thing. Where
it's easier to take a break now than it was. You know,
it's true.
Well, you could do quick saves on the Game Boy Advance, right?
Oh yeah, you could do the quick save. That's true. But I always got nervous about it.
Still, once your head gets out of the battle, there's a couple too many parts in an Advance Wars.
Once you try to get back in, it's like, wait, what was I doing? What was I trying to?
Kind of makes me really think that Fire Emblem's kind of got Fire Emblem Awakening and Fire Emblem Three Houses had battles that were like just the right length to me. Each one feels a little bit shorter than a good VHS tape feature film, you know. Like a good 80 minute direct to video action movie with just as many thrills. I don't know. I thought they had just the right thing. Somebody actually very eloquently asked me the other day, not that I'm some kind of professed Fire Emblem expert. They were like, "Which Fire Emblem should I play? Should I play Berwick Saga?" Which, first of all, if you're listening to this, you should not play Berwick Saga, and you can't play Berwick Saga because Berwick Saga plays you. Berwick Saga is a Fire Emblem for people destined to die on the electric chair. You can try it. You can try Tearing Saga. People are like, maybe I should play Tearing Saga. So this person was asking me, should I play Tearing Saga or Berwick Saga, or should I play Fire Emblem? I didn't know I had this opinion in me, so I'll give it to everyone else. Just play that Three Houses one. It's got a dating sim grafted on there. It's got PS2 game graphics. It's on your Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
You make a choice very early, like which one of these three houses are you going to be in? And then you get to eat lunch with people. I don't know, man. Try that one. And then play the sicko mode ones afterward if you want.
Yeah, I agree.
That's all I have to say about that.
Okay, well, I'll do one. I guess if I try to continue themes, I'll go with Persona 5 Tactica, which I did give a shot to. I think the coolest thing about Persona 5 Tactica is that there is a billboard for it in my neighborhood, which is a real above the cheapest gas station. So that's a very interesting thing. But I don't like the art style. It's continuing that Persona Q dungeon or whatever style that was.
Yeah.
It's got that extremely anime dub voiceover. But it's basically like a tactical cover shooter somewhere in between Valkyria Chronicles and Mario vs. Rabbids, basically. The battle system is okay. It's not really my style. It's not really clear where you can shoot from. Using your Persona skills makes it a little more interesting because you can knock enemies around with attacks and kind of get them into your friend's line of sight or whatever. But it feels like they could have had something if they made each fight like a little puzzle, which they almost did, but not quite did. And it's very talky, and I basically wanted to stop playing it right away. I don't know if I was disappointed, but I wasn't appointed. That is for true. So it was, it was fine, but I don't know who that was for, really, because...
Yeah, I own it, and I haven't played it, but I've heard people talk about it, and the people I've heard talk about it are like, excited about anything Persona related, excited about tactics games, particularly just excited about Persona related stuff.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard anyone like super duper excited about the actual game itself. I'm sure there's something to it, I'm sure the designers got away with something that I would find impressive using Persona 5 wallpaper as an excuse, right?
Yeah.
But I'm looking at it. Every time I've looked at it, I felt the same way. The art design is a few notches between Funko Pop and Nendoroid in terms of the cutesiness, and it's a little it's a little blasé to me. It seems a little comfortable just being a Persona 5 related game. It's basically a licensed game. is what it is.
Yeah,
right.
It feels like that in the bad way, not the good way. And I think the main thing that it would do is make you think about what a better tactical cover shooter would be. And when Tom Clancy's Shadow Wars or whatever already exists, you already have kind of an idea of where that could go, or an XCOM or whatever.
Yeah.
They had a chance to make like a more action-y tactical cover shooting thing or something, but they just didn't. It feels like all the daring that they had was used up on the idea Persona 5 Tactica.
Just that name.
Just like we're gonna make a Persona Tactics game, and then the rest of it they just didn't have it there.
So the way I see it here is, and this is my opinion, having not played it and being a little, I wouldn't call myself necessarily jaded about Persona games so much as I really just wish they would remake Persona 2 the way they did Persona 3.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with the one or two weird guys under every tweet about Persona 3, every Instagram post. Where's Persona 2? Those psychos with 12 followers and 0 posts.
Yeah,
right. I agree with those guys kind of with regard to that. But with this, it's like there's a certain before she was famous for being a horrible bigot, J.K. Rowling was laughed at for fleshing out her characters via frivolous thrown off tweets saying stuff like Dumbledore took dumps in his pants and apparated it into a landfill or whatever. Right. Just kind of filling in backstory details no one asked for. I don't exactly feel the same way about Persona 5 Strikers and Persona 5 Tactica, but why are they going back in there and making more Persona games? Isn't it nice to just think of the game just being a thing?
Yeah.
The Royal Definitive Edition, that I can chill with 1,000,000%.
Sure.
But again, there's probably something I would find really exciting about these games if I played them more. But it's like there's essential story content in there. In our day, we used to make fun of Japanese game developers when they made like a pachinko machine that had some Castlevania Symphony of the Night plot elements that you can't experience anywhere else, or Metal Gear Solid cutscenes you can only see in this pachinko slot machine if you feed it enough hundreds of dollars. So it's better than that, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I like Persona 5 and I enjoyed the time I hung out with those characters because I've liked all of those games, whatever. It's a controversial opinion to have, by the way, to like all of them.
Yeah.
It seems like everybody has to hate one of them. So
yeah, it's weird.
And I think Persona 5 is the one that most people who hate a Persona game hate. Did you know this? So,
yeah.
Interestingly, nobody hates 2. Why don't they remake it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where is it? Where is it?
Mm-hmm.
Should we do another one?
Let's do it.
I can do this one real quick. Because I mentioned a licensed game and we've done some Metroidvanias. I played a bit of that Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Oh, yeah. I heard about that. I didn't play it.
I liked that Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order game. I love the idea of a mid-budget game that's a licensed game that is exploring multiple genres at the same time. In this case, it was a Metroidvania, Dark Souls-like, kind of more of a Dark Souls-like than anything else, but streamlined a little bit with this more of a streamlined user experience. It was Star Wars. It had spaceships you can go into. You go inside your spaceship and sit around, and you go out, and the geometry is all continuous, and you just get really pumped about hanging out in the Star Wars world. And the story was all right as far as these Star Wars things go. And it was made by Respawn,
right?
Titanfall and Titanfall 2, and the guys who made Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Well, they're back, and they made another one. And I don't recall seeing it mentioned much at Goody time.
Yeah, it didn't really hit the Sam Goody got it location.
It's like I plunked in like 3 hours, and I'm like, man, they made another one. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like tuning into a baseball game and seeing my favorite guy hit a home run and then just turning it off is kind of what it felt like. Because, video games, 3 hours, who knows how many drops that is in the bucket these days, right?
I might get in on that one in the sense that it's a little different, but in the sense that I watch the blockbuster movies on a plane usually.
Oh, yeah.
I tend to play these big blockbuster video games when they're on Game Pass or similar. So if that floats to the top of my Game Pass queue, I'll probably give it a go.
It'll likely happen being an EA joint.
I would say, yeah.
But they put a little more money on this one. It feels like a little more, probably a lot more, reasonable amount more. So that's neat. I mean, again, going with this 2023 being kind of a game funeral for a particular era of single player AAA video games. It is neat to have a company as big as this is what we get. We get the ability to say it's neat that a company as big as EA made a single player Metroidvania, Dark Souls, Star Wars game. That's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Well, they published it, right? They funded it. I don't know. I like that. It's not going to happen forever.
Smoke them if you got them kind of a situation.
Yeah, and I got them. Why not save it for later is the thing at that point.
Yeah, yep.
Start hoarding these things. They're like squirrel acorns.
Yeah, maybe it'll be someone's Game of the Year 2024 because they finally played it.
The Nintendo Switch version.
Yeah, that's right. That runs at 5 frames per second. I'll sort of continue along with two things that you said because I played the Transphobia Wizards video game.
Oh, you did?
Yep, I played Hogwarts.
First of all, Hogwarts? What kind of a thing is that to call something?
Yeah. So
she writes that down and goes, my masterpiece.
So, we won't discuss the whole thing. We all know how we feel about J.K. Rowling and her transphobia. We don't like it. This game does try to not be that way because you can choose your character's appearance and then choose their voice, and they don't have to match what one might traditionally think, etc. Uh-huh. And that's cool and all. It does a lot of Hogwartsy stuff. Here's my bottom line. If you liked Harry Potter as a kid and you can acquire this game without paying for it, go for it. Because you actually absolutely go on AAA Hogwarts adventures, and I understand why that's valuable to people because they grew up with that stuff and it feels nice to them, and you can wander all around Hogwarts and find mysterious adventures, and there's like main story adventures, but there's little cool little side questy things, and if you like that world, you're gonna have a good time because you can go all over that whole castle. Parts of it you'd never seen in the movies, parts of it you only read about in the books.
They just give it all to you.
They just give it all to you, and you can go everywhere. You can transport yourself around with whatever they call those flues.
You can go to that village. I've seen pics of a village.
Right? You can go to the village, and there's all kinds. It's like Hogwarts is your gigantic, ginormous hub world in which many of your adventures do take place, but it starts outside of and before Hogwarts. Then you get into Hogwarts, and Hogwarts is big. Then you go on additional adventures outside of Hogwarts. It all feels like the best parts of Harry Potter. And so if you like that sort of thing, go ahead and find a way to not pay for it is my IMO. In my IMHO, in my humblest IMHO, go steal it and play it if you liked that stuff as a kid. The end.
I didn't play that one, but J.K. Rowling sure did go all the way bonkers, didn't she?
100% all the way.
You kind of got to wonder, was Hogwarts, the name Hogwarts, how she came up with that? I feel like it's highly likely that it was like just like very obviously some sort of horrible racist slur. And the editor's like, you got to change that. And she's like, no. And then he's like, man, you've got to, like, we literally can't publish this book. And it's just like the most horrible combination of like 3 slurs, like clearly. And then she's like, the name is important. And then eventually she just comes up with the name Hogwarts and goes, oh, what if we just call it Hogwarts then? That's my only offer. And the editor's like, okay, fine. And then that was it. That's how they came up with the name Hogwarts. In hindsight, we know this is likely the story.
Yeah.
This is likely the story.
Yeah.
I didn't play that game. I heard that as an action RPG, it's a bit lame, but as a hangout, it's a bit luxurious.
Exactly. It's the hangout is what they emphasize, and all the action stuff is like it's whatever, but it's whatever in a way that makes sense to the property. For me, because we never really understand exactly how they do magic or what that all is, and it like we sort of do, but not 100%. And in this game, you're just sort of doing magic. It's an easy thing to do. It's very frictionless, and I feel like that's fine.
It's like Forspoken.
Yeah,
you press the button and blast.
Yeah, it's not as good as Forspoken in terms of the action, obviously, but
Forspoken's legit, dude. More like more smoking.
More smoking.
Yeah, but a Hogwarts, call it something else.
Yeah.
come on, right?
Right.
Just can't get over that.
What's your next
And
one?
I won't get over that. What do we got? We got other stuff here. Now, did you play that System Shock remake by Night Dive?
No, I didn't play any of the remakes. I wound up having to ignore all the remakes, unfortunately.
Well, the System Shock remake is incredulously substantial. I did not list this as one of the games of the year because it's not a new game. It's a remake.
Yeah.
Is it as substantial, the remake, as Resident Evil 4, which I think is a good... I think that Resident Evil 4, if nothing else, is like a good precedent to hold up and be like, this is where a remake becomes a new game, right? This is like, it's exactly like one toe over the line. It's a remake. Well, I mean, it's not one, it's more than one toe over the line, but it's like this is, you change about this much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you want to assess how much of a remake is a thing, compare it to that. And it's obviously not that much of a remake. It's the original System Shock now remade with absolutely incredible graphics. Just beautiful graphics. One of the most awe-inspiringly, strikingly gorgeous graphical styles I've ever seen in a thing. It's just System Shock, but it's got more user-friendly menus.
Yeah, I like all those Night Dive remakes. I think they're all good.
Yeah, everything they do.
It's weird to feel like I don't want to nominate those. Every year I tend to get one of those and play all the way through it, and then I'm like, but is it a game of the year? It's more like the game that we should have had in 1998 or whatever.
Year it came out.
Yeah,
they're Two Rocks, they're Quakes, they're Quake 2, adding map features to these old games.
Yeah, it's great.
And adding navigation features and such.
Yeah, I mean, I found out I liked Turok because of playing those remakes. I was like, I guess I liked this game all along after all.
There's a certain, you obviously run up against a bunch of gatekeepers who are like, it shouldn't have maps in it. You should have to learn where stuff is. It's like, well, you have a lot different priorities when you're encountering a video game at like age 12, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like than you do like where you can afford to pour dozens and dozens of hours to figuring out how to get through the stuff. But yeah, man, I think that those games are all cool. And that System Shock remake, I know, is the thing that, of all the stuff they've put out in the past several years, the System Shock remake is by far their biggest, highest budget, their biggest time expenditure. Like they poured a lot into that game, and it shows. And the game is cool, and it's now like for anyone who wants to play it, you don't have an excuse for not playing it, except maybe you're waiting for it to go on sale.
Yeah,
because it's $39.99, which is kind of expensive, but in my opinion, that it's way worth it. It's gorgeous, man. It's just a good-looking video game. I love it. I gotta use the bathroom. Should I use the bathroom?
Sure.
I'll be right back after this.
The following ad supports the Insert Credit podcast, but is not necessarily endorsed by its individual members. This is the Insert Credit Quick Break. I'm Alex Jaffe, and this week's Insert Credit is sponsored by GLYDR. Modern games give your hands a lot to do, whether it's executing movement tech in competitive shooters or reaching for health kits when the action is at its most intense. At GLYDR, they're rethinking this problem and giving you the ability to move actions from your hands to your feet, allowing you to focus on core actions, relieve hand strain during long sessions, and customize your perfect control scheme. GLYDR is an analog foot controller allowing for up to 16 different actions mapped to your feet. GLYDR is fully compatible with your PC library, seated VR experiences, and select console games, with more compatibility coming soon. When you're done playing for the day, GLYDR can make video editing, music production, spreadsheeting, and much more an even more efficient and enjoyable experience. You can reserve GLYDR for $100 off today at feetlegal.com, or simply search for GLYDR, that's GLYDR, on Kickstarter now. Get your feet in the game with GLYDR. To sponsor a future episode of Insert Credit, get in touch with me by sending an email to show@insertcredit.com.
There's a bunch of cops going completely bonkers in the street outside right now.
They love that stuff.
Yeah, which is driving me bonkers. Speaking of Hogwarts, we got several of them out there. Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to say about that Hogwarts, which was when that game came out, there was no shortage of people dunking on it. on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
I received more than 4 messages from people saying, if you're going to play that Hogwarts game on your stream this Friday, I will unback you on Patreon. And I was like, all right, it's getting a little too tasty in the community. So there's just we're having a little too much of a time. Why haven't you said anything about the Hogwarts game? Someone asked me, in good faith even, right? But the lamest thing that I saw individuals say about the Hogwarts game was, who's the developer? It's like Avalanche Software,
I think it's
not
Avalanche.
Avalanche Studios, not the Avalanche that made Just Cause, but I saw somebody like picked up on the fact that they'd made like a Cars licensed Disney video game. And then people are tweeting about just making fun of the previous games the developer made. So I'll leave those people alone. That kind of sucks. Go ahead and yell at me for not saying whether I'm going to play it or not. But that's weird that they started. I just saw so many people making fun of the fact that the developer had made like licensed shovelware games before that.
And
let them have their shot to make a AAA thing.
I actually thought it was the same Avalanche. I didn't realize that until just now.
Really? Yeah. I honestly would rename my game company if I had the same name as another company that got more famous than me more quickly or whatever.
Avalanche Software versus Avalanche Studios. Avalanche Studios being the one that everybody likes, and Avalanche Software being the one that nobody heard of till now.
They should name themselves Other Avalanche.
That's right.
That's what they should do.
They should do it. So let's see. We got a lot left here, and I don't want to spend too much time on all of them, but I guess I'll go with one that I can be real quick on, because I said I didn't play any licensed games and any remakes, and that turned out to actually be an accidental lie, because I did play a little bit of the Dead Space remake.
Oh yeah.
And it just reminded me of oldie time video game ideas that were really interactive and immersive, or supposed to be. People thought they were at the time, but which are not anymore, like the kind of quote interactive story where they trap you in a room and a cutscene happens that you can watch, but you can move around.
You can move your character around and look through a window and see something horrific happening on the other side of the window.
You're basically forced, because you're a player of video games, you move around and do stuff. You're forced to ruin the immersion. There's nothing, your hands are tied.
Yeah.
You got to jump around in there. You got to like keep doing attacks when it doesn't make any sense to. Like there's no choice. You have to do that. And this game sure feels better than Callisto Protocol, but I still don't love shooting the limbs off. And I think I liked it more than I did the first time around, but certainly not enough for it to be any kind of game of any year for me.
I love how they tell you to shoot the limbs off like so many times.
So many times. I
made fun of that a lot in my day.
You were right too.
And now the way everybody's making fun of the yellow paint now.
Yeah.
Because I know for a fact that shoot the limbs off video game graffiti was definitely put into that game. Because
everyone was trying to shoot the head and it was taking too long, which by the way was the very first thing I did. Even though I knew, even though I've known for 20 years, I knew not 20, 15 years. I know you're supposed to shoot the goddamn limbs, but I don't. What if I don't want to? What if that's not fun for me? So anyway, it's fine. That game's fine. Next.
Yeah, that's the old Dead Space remake.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. I thought of a few more games to add to my can't chill with list.
Sure.
And no, really, there's just one. It's Dave the Diver.
Oh, DTD.
I saw that game.
I didn't play it.
I kept hearing people mention it, and I kept seeing the same ad for it on my Instagram and my Twitter, and I kept saying, nah. I kept just kind of narrowing my eyes at it and scrolling past. Like, what is this? It's a game about a guy who scuba dives and then you run a sushi restaurant. I wonder what the likelihood is that either of those things is exciting to do, right?
Yeah.
It's very hard to make a video game that is two things and have both of them be good. Normally, you're hiding the fact that neither of them is good. I'm not saying I haven't played the game. It's such a very, I couldn't chill with this thing. And I remember there being a controversy about it being nominated for best indie game.
Yeah.
And it's like funded by $1 billion corporation.
It's not just funded by Nexon. It is a team
made inside
within Nexon, getting paid Nexon salaries They work at Nexon. It's just that there's fewer of them on that team.
A little bit of an offensive prospect, but then also the game itself is just couldn't chill with that. Thank you. So that's a game I didn't play in 2023.
Okay, should I do one?
A game you didn't play or a game you did?
A game I did. Oh, well, a game I didn't play is what is that, like Eternals of Aveum or Immortals of Aveum?
Oh yeah, I would have played that. Yeah,
Aveum the Game, but I did not play the game because it friggin' forgot about it. Didn't realize it happened. Didn't realize it came out. I will play it.
There wasn't any buzz. Sometimes even the most plugged in person doesn't feel a buzz about a thing.
It feels like they did not make us aware of it. As a person who pays attention, who tries to pay attention to things, to have the first time I heard about it be a Game Awards thing, and then the second time I heard about it be we didn't sell enough copies and we are going under. That was unfortunate.
I had like the slightest blip that it had come out, and I don't know anyone who played it, but I wonder. It just like I rewatched the trailer like last week after we recorded that episode of the show, and I was like, I wonder if this game is too long, is like what I wondered from the trailer. That was my one thing I was thinking. I was like, I wonder if this game is like way too long.
And it seems like it's not, is what I've heard. I've heard it's not too long.
It's not?
Yeah. So
it had no buzz, man.
Yeah.
There was no buzz, right?
It was anti-buzz.
Yeah. It was very weird.
I can go for one that I did play now.
Oh, go for it.
Remnant II.
Remnant II. They found another Remnant.
So not a very good name of a game because also I didn't play the first one, but Remnant II, it just that sounds like less than anything, but it's a pretty decent third-person shooter. All the early bad guys are wood with a lot of red glowy stuff.
Yeah.
You can't advance the dialogue, which is annoying. I don't like that kind of stuff, and sometimes conversations in town can overlap, which I also don't like. It's very hard to listen to. However, some of the voice acting is pretty fun. There's this voice actor who does a character called Mudtooth, who has real good timings and pronunciations.
Oh, that's good.
It's a weird thing where I would almost recommend to you, Tim, to listen to him because this guy sounds like, in a good way, something that you might have done, but that might then, when you listen to it, make you feel insulted. I'm not sure.
That could be a thing.
It's stuff. He'd be saying stuff like, "I was tooling around in my heliocipitopter, and my son Brabus says." As soon as it got to a son named Brabus, I was like, "This is a little Tim Rogers adjacent."
I have that game in my. It is in my my Steam wish list. Simply, I only wish list stuff so that if it goes on sale, I'll know, because it makes it easier. It's easier to buy stuff when there's a Steam sale if it's in your wish list. In case anybody didn't know that.
This character is the only ever rambling old man character for whom I've been like, you know what? Give me the next one. Let's hear the next really long rambling story you got to tell, because they were all fun. They were funny, enjoyable to hear. The guy's got a little of the dementia. He's floating in and out of what did I just say? And it's fun. But anyway, as for the game itself, decent third-person shooter, a lot of weapons. You got some melee weapons. They give you a choice of archetypes to embody at the start, but one of those archetypes gives you a dog. So, like, what's the point in even showing you any of the other ones? Like, what?
Oh yeah, getting a dog's good.
Don't really have a choice.
I remember seeing some trailers and stuff for this, and making fun of the fact that it was being published by Gearbox. Which I find very funny.
It is funny,
but the game has a. And it has a real Xbox 360 core sort of aesthetic to it, which
Absolutely.
I like.
And it's got pretty neat environments once you start world hopping. And what it reminded me the most of visually is Quantum Theory. If they
I love Quantum Theory,
buffed all the graphics up. And where I sort of got stalled is that the maps are real big. And there's like elevators in between them. And once I started to get a little too lost, then I was like, but this game, I believe, is meant to be largely played co-op with your buddies.
Oh, yeah.
And then those big maps don't feel so weird because you'll all be going off into different areas and then reconvene and stuff. And so it would make a lot more sense. But I was playing single player. But, I think I have a suspicion that game is pretty neat. And if people played it, that they would like it, especially if they played it with friends. So that's what I got to say about that.
I'm all for video games that are about playing with your buddies, but the last couple times I've tried to like really kind of zero in on having a good time with one of those. I mean, I played through a couple co-op games. Remnant was on the list of like the candidates of something to play, but it was like we tried to play that Warhammer Darktide game, which is made by the people who made Warhammer Vermintide, which I liked a lot. But that Darktide, it was just there was just kind of too much user experience cruft. There was just too much stuff, you know, a giant hub world with shops and stuff, and there's just like too much metagame in there, you know. This Remnant 2 looks like it doesn't have as much, so that's neat. It's
pretty cool. Also, I just wanted to make a little addendum to my jokes about Aveum, where I said play 'em, and I want to make very clear that that was a joke about how Aveum sounds, and I realize that that is an old-timey way that people made fun of indigenous people talking. That was not my intention. So let's just let's just put that on the record that was.
Oh, that's fine, perhaps.
You know, I just gotta make sure because that just filtered back into my brain. I was like, what do you got next?
I'm gonna throw out a video game that's a pretty legit one. My dog is yelling. My Mimsy just left. With her, she went. None of us know. So these dogs are yelling.
Yeah.
One is this next video game is a video game that I heard a lot of people talking about it. People who are like cool, and also people who are just generally kind of obnoxious talking about this game at the same time in the same way.
Nice.
And I started to think, what is this? And I watched a little trailer for it and was immediately kind of hands on my hipsulus about it. Right. And then I played it, and it's real good. And that is a game called Pizza Tower. Did you play this one?
Oh, yeah. I didn't play it. There was some stupid controversies or whatever about Pizza Tower. And
are there controversies? What are they?
I don't know. I got confused. It was about, I don't know. I shouldn't get into it because I don't know for sure.
I need to know.
Well, let me look it up.
No, you don't have to tell me. It's fine. I don't need to know. That was just content. I was just making content by saying I needed to know. It's okay. But yeah, what about it? Did you enjoy this game?
I didn't play it. I thought it was funny to see it in the Game of the Year stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's just
every time it came up.
Yeah,
that MS Paint aesthetic. It's basically a Wario Land, like very inspired by your Game Boy Wario Lands. I think Pizza Tower is a neat. It's a neat sort of bookend for your indie games of the year 2023. So you've got Void Stranger, which is deceptively sophisticated, right? Like a game that looks kind of like there might not be much to it, but there's a lot to it. And then, you know, there's this Pizza Tower, which is a game that basically is what it looks like, and it looks crazy, but it's not actually that crazy. It's just kind of a good time to play, right?
Nice. Yeah.
I mean, there's not really much more to say about it in general.
I played it a little bit at an event and felt pretty good.
Yeah.
Felt pretty good to move around and do stuff.
It's got a good tasty feel to it.
Should I do one?
Yeah, throw one out there, Charles.
Okay, we're in probably the 60% point of getting through all of these. So
start flopping them out.
I'll do the one that I think deserves the most of a 6 out of 10 out of all these games.
Spill them on the floor.
Which is,
I think I know which one you're coming up with.
Oh yeah, it's Wanted Dead.
I was literally just looking at something. I'm going to paste it in here to you. It's a tweet from the Wanted Dead official Twitter account today from a couple hours ago that says we've reworked the first encounter with the ninja. His HP and damage have been modified to provide a better combat experience, and you can also see how much health he has left.
Yeah.
In addition to this, we've added a checkpoint right before the fight. It's like,
yeah, and
there are additional stim packs before the fight. If your health gets too low, we've got you covered. It's like you added some healing items, a checkpoint, and a life bar. To the first boss of your game or whatever.
That is exactly what this game is all about. It's like it's so weird. It feels like you got all the hardest dudes in the industry to make baby's first shotgun blast of all the video games put together into one.
Yeah.
It's very, very confusing. And I did indeed die on that goddarn ninja boss and have to go through the whole campaign again because of that. And because that checkpoint wasn't there yet.
A checkpoint and health bar. This is, you can also see how much health he has left.
Yeah.
Why don't you just say we added a health bar? It's a thing we have a 2-word phrase for.
Yeah.
They're acting like they invented something.
Yeah. So this game has lazy fonts that you would hate. You would hate them.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at them, yeah. Oh, I've played this game.
It has bizarre, exaggerated, puppety animation. Everyone jiggles around, moving too much. Just bizarre VO performances. Like your main character is extremely Russian, but has no affect. She's just like, oh yeah, I guess that it could be how that is. And it's like, who are you talking to? Like, what is this?
It is an unabashedly, egregiously surreal sort of audiovisual experience. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a cover shooter in some ways, in the classic old style of you can't get into cover when you want to, but you do when you don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
The writing in this is so much worse than Forspoken. It's like trying to be Tarantino. It's when I was in high school, and my 14-year-old, 15-year-old friends were like, have you heard this Pulp Fiction? They do so many swears in it. And that was like so cool because, and then they wrote a script with a lot of swearing because that was what they took away from Pulp Fiction. You know, this feels like kind of that. The main character holds her gun with a second hand on the magazine, which is like,
oh God, yeah.
what are you doing? The combat feels really bad at first, but then it starts to get a little better. It's possible to figure out how to play
I
it.
feel like if you're making a game, you should start with the good combat.
I feel like you should
make it good at the beginning.
You have to kind of put your mind in an older era, but I don't excuse it. The camera sometimes moves on its own during combat, so you can die from a thing you didn't see, or get trapped in a combo that fully kills you, and then have to start a whole 10-minute combat encounter over again. There's some Earth Defense Force-like banter, which is almost funny. There was one time when I was just running around an area for 10 minutes trying to figure out why I couldn't advance, and there were two guys that were like hidden. They were standing up in this area that I couldn't get to. Luckily, I had enough bullets so I could shoot at them, and then they were enticed to come down. But without those guys coming down...
Yeah, there's some absolute PS2 video game design. So this is a kind of game where it is not, I've played enough of it to know it is not a good game.
No.
Like, almost like, I hesitate to use the phrase at all. Almost entirely not a good game.
Yeah.
It's a very stupid thing. If it had come out 12 years ago, I would have made a bunch of funny tweets about it, right? But it's a point in my life where I just don't really want them like this. I think there's a part of me that has learned to really, really enjoy some particularly stupid art, right? And it's just the wavelengths just don't align with this. Like I would much rather replay any Kingdom Hearts game. It's something that is singularly artistically, not sinisterly. I mean, I don't think this game is sinister about anything it's doing, but I think the weirdness feels simultaneously accidental and forced.
Yes, for sure.
It's something my wavelength just does not line up with it. Like I rejected it like an organ transplant.
The pacing is absolutely bizarre. Like you get a huge long cutscene in the police station. You're a police officer, sort of. Get this huge long cutscene about how the food is bad, which was, I think, supposed to give camaraderie between the characters, but it just was like, why is this here? You can get a whole CG cutscene because you read a file. It's just like a backstory that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise, but it's a whole full CG cutscene. Sometimes a 2D animated scene will happen because you just walked into an area. There's a ramen eating mini game for some reason. Yeah. But it's like all that stuff sounds interesting, but none of it is done with any palpable intention. It feels like somebody's nephew, some rich nephew, was just supplying "wouldn't it be cool if" ideas.
Some 90-year-old man's rich 50-year-old nephew who played a lot of bad PS2 games when he worked in a bank in his 30s. Is kind of what it feels like. I mean, it really does feel like playing a PS2 game at some points, which is fun.
Very much.
It feels like playing a Japanese Xbox game that didn't exist, that never got a chance to exist.
My final conclusion with this is basically like, it's bad I can't recommend it. It's like a really ambitious PS2 game in construction and execution with a contemporary AA veneer, but none of those things are in a good way. And despite all that stuff I said, I also think that this is exactly the kind of game that people on the show would find interesting to play one way or another. And I don't think I'm going to be able to stop anybody from doing it.
Yeah, I mean, check it out by all means.
Yeah.
It's made by the developer of those Naruto Shinobi Striker games.
I'll finish it.
There's stuff in the action that's like you can kind of see them going somewhere with it.
Yeah, it almost got there with some of the, especially the melee action. Some of it could almost get there. And so you can intersperse melee sword attacks and shooting in between each other. And it like almost works. But then when you look at Final Fantasy 16, then you're like, oh, this is what they could have done. This is how, this is
or
what.
you look at Devil May Cry 5, right? And it's just like, there's blueprints out there that in this particular day and age, there's no excuse for game designers to not have done a little bit more homework.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's kind of a summer reading list that got untouched during the development of this particular video game. But I mean, again, it is fascinating.
It is.
Recently, a journalism student came to me and asked for like some help thinking critically, becoming a video game critic. And I was like, just find a video game you don't really care about and try to critique the heck out of it. Why not this one? If you're listening to this episode, why not this one? Give it a shot. There's a lot of stuff that would require you to have played other video games in order. If this was the only video game you ever played, Wanted Dead, you might arrive at the end of the experience with a wide variety of ways to ruin any conversation you get into for the rest of your life. Right? We've all seen the tweet, guy who has only seen Boss Baby, right? You've seen this tweet, getting a lot of Boss Baby vibes out of this, right? Getting a lot of Wanted Dead vibes out of this, you say to Ninja Gaiden Black or whatever. Having done a lot of homework, doing the homework requisite to adequately review this game would kind of put you in an interesting position. So maybe it is a neat game to think about and play.
Yeah, it's certainly like if you want to see a game where decisions were made but without any intention, the decisions were made but choices weren't, this is kind of the game.
I mean, I have a firsthand experience working on a AAA video game that was very, very much a very confident thing with tons of very, very carefully made decisions in it that arrived to market as maybe those who have played it would not call it just an abjectly surreal experience, but compared to what it was when I was there, like what happened to it is very, very strange. So I feel like this game is, there's a possibility someone was like, let's make Ninja Gaiden for the new generation. Yeah. What if there was a gun? Okay. What if it was a girl? All right. What if it was really funny? Do we know anybody who can write a joke? No. Here's a programmer, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he can write a joke, right?
Yeah.
Here's a programmer who maybe he can write 2 or 3 jokes for our game. What if there was a ramen eating minigame, right?
Yeah, that goes on for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's just like where the button is recognized on button up, and for some reason they have L2 and R2 in there, and so you have to plan your actions well in advance so that the button up of your right trigger can get there. It's just like, come on, guys.
Or just buy yourself a scuff controller with really tight trigger locks,
just for Wanted Dead,
which is a $200. Pay $200 just so you can more comfortably get through this mini game.
Yeah,
I got this scuff controller for PC, the hair trigger lock. It's like a mouse click.
Nice,
it's amazing.
Nice.
Firing a gun in a game like a mouse click. It's beautiful. What else do we got? Let's blow through some of these. Let's blow through them.
Yeah.
Did you play that Fading Afternoon game?
I did not.
It's the new game by Yeo. You know that one?
Yeah.
The new it's your new Ringo Ishikawa's.
Yep.
He made many tweets this year about how he thought it was a bad game.
Yeah, he was all depressed and it was bad.
And the longer you work on a thing, the more you think it's terrible. Just
Certainly.
In general.
Yep.
You get too close to a thing. I think all of my videos are absolute trash as I'm working on them. And it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse the longer I spend on it. But then it comes out and people like it. And I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah.
And, part of you thinks maybe they're just stupid, right? So I'm sure that if he's listening to this podcast right now, he might say, maybe this guy's just stupid. But I thought that game was real good, dude. So there you go. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to play it. And I hope that guy feels a little better.
He's got the style. He's making stuff that's cool. Keep on doing it, I would say.
I'll do another quick one. I played Sea of Stars for a while.
Oh, Sea of Stars.
So very traditional RPG, but lots of animations, has a nice look.
Yeah.
It's a bit talky. It's very talky. And I hated the writing in the Messenger. And of course, they loved Jordan Peterson at that time.
They didn't love Jordan Peterson.
So they said they were making a joke, but I don't buy it.
I mean, I don't know. Okay, so first of all,
I read a lot about that.
I hate that Messenger game.
Yeah.
But it has nothing to do with the Jordan Peterson.
No.
It's just I didn't like it. This Sea of Stars game, I have some serious like Arby's roast beef sandwich beef with this game.
Mm-hmm.
Which it is the game I was referring to a few months back when I said there was a game that had writing so bad I couldn't play it.
Yeah.
Or not writing, but grammar. It was loaded with millennial commas. And it's like, that's fine.
Well, I think they learned English on the internet.
It's fine that you learned English as a second language.
Yeah.
Like they learned English they could have followed a couple of higher quality people on their social medias. The comma usage was driving me insane. And I only played it for a few hours. And it was like, I feel like there was not a single correctly used comma in the whole first 3 hours of the game.
The bigger problem for me, rather than the commas, because I don't have as much of a problem with that, because I like, and I recognize this is controversial, but I like to write how people speak more than how it looks good on a page, which is...
Well, I'm going to say that my little brother's son... no offense to the kid. He's not a dirtbag or an idiot or anything, because he's not old enough to have a personality. He talks like a YouTube video, not like a YouTuber. He talks like a YouTube video. Yeah. Silences clipped from between his words as though he were edited in Adobe Premiere with only the C, Q, and W keys. That's one for the video editors in the chat. I'm never going to write like that.
Well, sure.
But that's how people are all going to talk. There's a generation that's going to talk like that. I'm just going to keep writing like I'm some guy from Victorian England who time traveled to Kansas in his early teens. That's my kind of my landing strip.
We're gonna see how little you like the writing in Demon School, but the bigger problem that I have with the writing.
Just for the record, I do have some bigger problems with Sea of Stars. We can get into those in a minute, though. Let's keep going.
But with the writing specifically, is that it commits the ultimate sin of having a lot of scenes where the story is not moved forward. There are scenes that. Most of the whole intro, the first hour, is just, it's cuttable. Yeah. It neither advances the character interactions, because they're the same character basically, nor does it add anything.
It feels a little misguided. It's a misguided interpretation of what someone might believe the JRPG blueprint is.
Yes.
Which is fine. It's fine if your JRPG is largely atmospheric in the first hour, right? But it also, there has to be some action in the story. Like, I mean, I don't mean like game action, like there has to be plot action, right? So it's
some chunky points in there.
It's a little vacuous in its luxuriousness, which is a heck of a combo, And I
didn't like the battle system particularly. It was just whatever, and it's kind of, I don't know, like also it was poorly tutorialized where there's like timing based stuff in the battles with blocks and things, and it's a button hold for blocking, not a button press. And they said it wrong. And so I did it wrong for a long time. And then I was like, oh, you're supposed to hold the button. And then it was fine. It's like, why?
Like my like primary motivation for playing the whole game, which I have not done, is just to see if there's any parts where a comma mistake leads to the player doing the wrong thing. Just to have video footage of me doing something wrong because I couldn't tell some sort of strunk and white example.
Because you ate, shot, and left.
Am I eating, shooting, and leaving? What am I doing here? Right? Like some sort of elements of style miscarriage. But okay, so my beef with this game is, number one, it looks good, right?
Yes,
the pixel art's good. But, and this is coming real close to an old man comment. But games didn't look like that, man. No games ever looked like that. They looked beautiful. I play 16-bit video games on my TV every day, and they look gorgeous.
Well, I'm happy for games to look like this game looks.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah,
I like all the animations. I was like, wow, they made so many animations for this.
I feel like a lot of this stuff is hanging out in different games, or it's like from different games, which is fine as well. It's fine. Famously, Moon mixes claymation, CG, and sprite art, and it's fine. And pre-rendered CG backgrounds. It mixes a lot of stuff, right? And it ends up looking good. There's kind of a little bit more spaghetti on the wallishness to this game, but that's not even my beef. My beef is it is the year 2023 as of the release of this game. It's like, I don't know how to diplomatically phrase this without just kind of shooting from the hip, but it's like Chrono Trigger's cool. It's real cool. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a non-poser, non-hater who could take Chrono Trigger down critically, right? You'd be hard-pressed to find someone who could successfully convince you Chrono Trigger sucks, right? That's not going to be me, not today. But I am going to say you could play a couple more of these games. There's weirder ones out there.
Yeah, not everything has to be Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, it's just, I would have to get really in-depth on this. Read this particular game, but it's kind of Chrono Triggerish to what I consider to be a drastic fault.
Yeah.
If I hear one more time someone bring up Chrono Trigger in a conversation and mention that one of Chrono Trigger's big innovations, first of all, red flag when someone starts talking about a game from 30 years ago and says one of its big innovations was, and it's like, and then they're going to say something stupid, and it's like one of the big innovations was, you could see the monsters on the field. It wasn't random encounters. And it's like, man, those were random encounters, dude.
Yeah.
They were in scripted locations. Most of the time, the enemies jumped out of the trees, and it was a nice little artistic narrative designed flourish, kind of performed atop the JRPG template. But after that, though, the battle system in Chrono Trigger is pretty easily takedownable. If you've played enough JRPGs, that battle system falls apart under scrutiny pretty fast. And I mean, I'm not going to do that today, but your characters move around on the screen during the battle. It never cashes that check, not once.
Yeah.
It has that check in its hand the whole game, never cashes it. What's beautiful about Chrono Trigger is it's just amazingly well written. Amazing. Yuji Horii, top of his game, fresh off of Dragon Quest V. I'll try my hand at something a little simpler, he says, perhaps, and just knocks it all the way out of the park, all the way over the freeway, right? Like there's stuff in Chrono Trigger that is just it is just execution times a billion. If you're gonna go for Chrono Trigger, pack a lunch, man. Like play. I mean, I said this to somebody. I said this in a YouTube video about 5 years ago where I was like...
so you said it to everybody, ultimately.
I said it Octopath Traveler. I said, yes, this game looks like Final Fantasy VI, but it reminds me most of Unearthed Fantasy Stories, right? Seiya Monogatari. And I was like, play that game. Play weirder RPGs in general. Check them out. So I say that to video game developers very nicely. A lot of fan translations out these days.
You can play Linda Cube now.
Yeah, you can play Linda Cube now. But of course, it is very fast for someone to look at Sea of Stars and go, Chrono Trigger.
Yes.
And then, wish list it.
Yeah. So there's some intelligence to that. What do you got next?
All right. I'm going to do this next one. It's going to take 30 seconds. Assassin's Creed Mirage. They made another normal one. And if you've heard any hype at all, go ahead and believe it. It's a good one. They made a good one. And it's only took me like 12 hours to beat.
Oh, that's nice.
A refreshing dessert after 3 200-hour Assassin's Creed games that are each the size of one, and a half Witcher 3s, just luxuriously way too long with a bunch of broken, janky systems. They went back to what they know and they just made another Assassin's Creed. And it's, you're an assassin and it's nice and real good graphics on my NVIDIA RTX 4090. Real good graphics. Thank you. That's it. That's
nice.
all I got.
I got one. Eternights. I played this at the advisement of my programmer because of the audacity of the making of it. Basically, it started as a solo project, and then they got some more people working on it. But it's like they tried to make essentially that Atlas metaphor game. They wanted to make an action RPG Persona, but they had a small team. And the action is okay. Button placement is weird. You build a meter with regular attacks, but you have to do perfect dodges and dodges on X on PlayStation, which just it doesn't feel right. And then there's special attacks that have QTEs in them. And there's some weird imperfect mashing and stuff. And like Persona, you have relationships to level and some time limit before you complete an objective. You can hang out with folks or complete the objective or whatever, but it kind of doesn't really matter because the time limit is set no matter what. So sometimes you finish everything too early and just have to page through the days, which can take a while. It can be really dark.
I've paged through some days in real life, let me tell you.
Some hangouts have action and story, which is cool. And I think they have a scavenge mode, which is a neat way to do a little bit of story in a minigame with a minigame in world. There's some bad vocal songs. There's some 2D animated cutscenes. And
is it short?
It's not long.
The Steam reviews seem to be indicating it's short.
It's like 10 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours. And
all the Steam reviews are like 7 hours, 11 hours. And they're all talking about how they liked the ending or whatever. So.
Yeah. And they were really intelligent with like hiding when they didn't have assets by making the background all dark and stuff. They really were very, very ambitious with a point. So it's kind of the opposite of Wanted Dead, but it is also still pretty janky. It's about as good as Wanted Dead in the end, except coming from the direction of having some ideas and wanting to make actual choices. I think the thing that I like least about it is that there's a bunch of kind of like you and your male buddy are the skebe characters, and you can't turn that off. You can't turn the perverted stuff off, and it's like really stupid. It doesn't fit the tone of the rest of it. It's not like that bad. I think because it's just like it doesn't belong there, it feels weird. However, I kind of vaguely recommend it to people because it's an interesting example of a very small team trying to do an action RPG Persona and almost getting there. Did they use Unreal for this, or this was a Unity?
Oh, Unity. I specifically recall passing over this game when I was looking for games to play. I was like, I've seen this game before. Yeah. I'd seen a trailer for it, and I was like, this looks neat.
I would have skipped over it.
I just remember like when it was finally out and the winter sale was upon us, I just remember kind of looking at it. I don't even think it was on sale. And I was just like, you know what? I don't need this one.
Yeah.
And I didn't get it.
I would have skipped over it if it hadn't been recommended to me, I think.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. The Steam description on Google is Eternights is a unique blend of dating and action. Right. And immediately right there, remember what I said earlier in this very episode?
Yeah.
It sounds like you're doing two things that are different. Clippy pops up in the corner. Looks like you're doing two things that are different.
That stuff is actually relatively well integrated, but none of it is executed to perfection. But all of it is executed well enough. I think it's particularly interesting for game developers working on small games to look at this.
They got all these really, really aggressive, hazy effects in the graphics to make the lights look all glowy.
Punches above its weight.
You know what? I actually think that looks cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can throw that in there and it can make lower fidelity, lower polygon graphics look like way more impressive by doing that.
Yeah.
It actually gives it an atmosphere.
They gave it a shot. So I was impressed by that. And I think that it's the kind of game that you would play and forget about unless you were a game developer being like, oh, they did a good job of asset reuse here. But if you're looking for a thing that you can just get through, it's definitely one of those. So, it's in there for me. It's all right. Very nice. What's your next one?
What do we got? I got a couple on here. We didn't mention Diablo IV.
No.
I mean, I threw it out very briefly.
I thought Chris Graft was gonna do Diablo 4, and here's my Diablo 4 story, which is very much like me and very unfortunate. Which is, I have it. I was gonna play it to see what Diablo 4 is like. They popped up a screen saying that I had to sign up my email address for the
Battle.net account.
Yeah, for the Battle.net whatever account.
I mean, I've had a Battle.net account since like 2000, so.
And then I closed it, and that's where it's going to remain. I don't feel like doing that, and I don't need to play Diablo 4. So
yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, I've been a Battle.net account subscriber for like 24 years.
Yeah,
and they don't spam you or anything.
Sure, no, I had to sign up for the Square Enix account so I could play Babylon's Fall, and it took me like 30 seconds, and then it was over. But I just don't like it. I don't like it when they make you do that, and so I didn't.
Yeah. They're making you do that is, who knows what really at this point any of this means, but it's kind of part of what makes them able to make a pretty reliable online experience for the game.
Sure.
And Diablo sure is a game to play with your friends. And they made a really good one. I mean, they've only made 4 of them, right? So they're not exactly spamming you with the yearly sequels either, right? So they've made 4 of them in 25 years. And it's the new one, and it also looks real nice on my 4090, 4K 120. Played it with buddies, did a big long stream where we played for several hours, and you just, from the very first 2 seconds of the game, you're slamming dudes, and not only are you slamming dudes, you're making little decisions, and they really do over there at that particular developer have some of the best pound for pound game designers who've ever existed, and they shouldn't lay any of them off, is what I would say. I think that would be a great idea.
That'd be a good idea.
You feel like you're in good hands. You're like checking into a nice hotel. What kind of a game that is, Like you're checking into a nice hotel. You're in good hands. Nice hotel, good hands, beautiful face. There's just many things that you get into that game. It's got Ralph Ineson in it.
Nice.
So we got Ralph Ineson in 2 hot video games released within 2 weeks of each other. Amazing. My dream is that he would be the announcer for a goddarn Soul Calibur game someday. And they got goddarn Brian Cox from Succession to narrate a Tekken video from HBO's Succession. So could we get Ralph Ineson from HBO's Game of Thrones? Not that that's what he's known from, to be the announcer in a new Soul Calibur. Let's do it.
There were 2 weeks there where you could ask, "Is Ralph Ineson?" And your answer would have been yes.
And the guy at GameStop would go, "Yeah,
yeah."
Last one, bro. Take it from under the counter. God, Diablo 4 and Final Fantasy 16, both with our boy Ralph. Is he the celebrity voice actor of the year?
Maybe.
I guess so. What other big celebrity? He's not a big name celebrity. He's big enough. He's big in my house.
Nice.
But anyway, that Diablo 4 is cool. And I knew for a long time that Diablo 3 was very popular on consoles. That people played it on consoles.
Yeah.
And the entire duration of Diablo 3's existence, I never touched it on a console. I played it on PC just a little bit. I went hamburgers on Diablo 2, also for PC when it was originally out. I played that Diablo 2 remaster when it came out, which is very nice. Then Diablo 4 came out, and I wanted to stream it, and I wanted to stream it with my camera set up on my sofa and my microphone set up over there on my TV. So I was like, well, I'll try out these controls. I was like, there's just no way it would work with a controller, which is, in hindsight, an absolutely freakish thing to have thought, even for 1/16 of a second. It's fine. I've moved a guy around with an analog stick before.
Yeah.
In fact, I might like it a little more than clicking a thing and watching my guy run over to. You're in Diablo, you're just repeatedly clicking and watching your guy walk.
Right.
And you're just clicking the edge of the screen over and over again to make him continue walking north. Why not just be tilting an analog stick a little bit at that point?
Mm-hmm.
So that was my own getting out of my my old way of thinking in 2023. So
that makes sense.
Good job, guys.
Okay.
What you got? What's next?
Slayer X.
Slayer X.
I played Slayer X. It's made by a friend of the show, and it's a new metal boomer shooter with Matrix Star Wars stuff mixed in. It's the premise of this game, if you don't know, is that a guy with a soul patch goatee-ish situation started making a game in high school, then lost it for 20 years, and then finished it and released it today. That's the idea of it. It's very silly, plays all right, it's got a lot of secrets. You really got to be in a kind of a 90s meme mood. It's pretty fun and cute. You got to be the right audience for it. There's a lot of, you're shooting sentient poops and stuff. It's very silly, but in a kind of a charming way if you're in the right mindset, I would say. So, you could do worse than Slayer X, I would say.
I played this game and I absolutely hated it. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't play this game. I'm aware of this game. Is that good enough?
Yeah, I think your enjoyment of this game will kind of live or die on your interest in or tolerance of the idea that this is like a game that was started in 1998.
I'm going to paste something in the chat and I want you to look at it and tell me if you think this means I would enjoy this game.
Okay.
Does that look like I would enjoy this game? Have you seen this?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. That's Steam's recommendation.
Yeah, Dusk.
It says Dusk. The image says Dusk. 72 hours on record.
Yeah.
So I played a lot of Dusk.
All right, that's what I got. All the rest of these I'm gonna burn through them. So.
Oh yeah, let's do another game I didn't actually play award, even though I did play a little bit of it, and that's Honkai Star Rail.
Yes,
the game that took the world by storm this year, I believe.
Most popular booth at Tokyo Game Show. Totally mobbed because I think they were giving away an item.
Best part of that game was hearing Jeff Keighley pronounce it, just say Honkai Star Rail. I loved it so much.
It's good.
I think that is how it's pronounced. I think it's not a Japanese word, right?
I don't know.
I don't think it's supposed to be Japanese.
Really? Okay.
I don't know if it's Honkai. I don't think so. But Honkai is a very funny word.
It's funny.
It's like, what if Jeremy Renner was a goose? Right?
Yeah.
So there's that. There's that.
Man, I'd probably watch that show, I guess.
Yeah. So it's Honkai Star Rail. I look at it, and I'm like, if we were giving all of these games awards, which is something we probably should have, the framing device we should have thought of before the show, is think of an award for to give each of these games.
Yeah.
This would be the...
Oh, yeah, we did that last year, actually, and I just forgot about it.
Workshop it. The award I would give this game is not Game of the Year. Oh, it's also interesting to point out that the Game of the Year episode came out today, the day we're recording this.
Yeah.
And we were thinking it would be broken up into 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And then apparently people on my Discord were asked if they wanted it as 1 episode, and they said yes. And then that's what happened. And that's why we're recording this today instead of next week. We said at the end of that episode last week that we have a whole week to decide whether we want to leave Final Fantasy 16 as the Game of the Year or not. And I guess it's just there. That's it. We didn't get to change it. So that's very funny.
It is funny. The decision got taken away from us.
In addition to that bit of meta commentary, I'm going to say sort of the inverse of what I said about Final Fantasy 16. Sort of. I didn't really say, sort of the inverse of some of the stuff that I said and some of the stuff I didn't end up saying about Final Fantasy 16. So nobody listening has any ability to get their head around what I just said. And it's going to have to stay that way because I'm busy. I've got a lot to do right now. That's a joke. I do. The award I would give Honkai Star Rail is, and I hate to do this, I hate to speak this way, because I think this is a really gross way to frame a compliment, but I don't have anything else. And it's I'm really happy for the people who like that game award.
Sure, yeah.
Because it's a big old salad bar buffet, macaroni and cheese bowl full of elements and parts and pieces and parcels, moist morsels, delicious and scrumptious granules of hundreds of video games I have liked over the years. I find something a little repugnantly VTuber-esque about some of the graphics. Like a girl has a hat on the side of the top of her head with a hat on top of it and a necklace on the hat and eyeballs the size of shotgun wounds, Yeah. Again, it's all fallen out of my brain like tears in AI generated rain, Like, I mean, I know it's a lot of art. It's a lot of stuff. And none of it has any time to hang in my head because I didn't tunnel into it because that's a game made. It like exists in some sort of post-criticism continuum, If that is anybody picking up on this? Anybody in the chat? Wait, can we see what they're saying in the chat? That's a joke. Oh, we're not live. Okay. It exists in some sort of a post-criticism continuum where I've been talking about this on my streams recently where it's like, I feel like, games aren't about critics. That's why they're all getting laid off and all that. And it's like, it's about the user score now on Metacritic, right? Yeah. We talked about this in the Metacritic episode as well. This is a game made for the people who play it and they god darn love it, right?
Yeah.
So if I were to even want to think about critiquing it, I would have to spend a year of my life like playing nothing else.
Right.
Is my perspective as a person who's played literally thousands of video games valuable, important, or interesting to somebody who loves that game? Maybe, but I don't have enough time left literally in my life to start playing that game to find out what I could say about it.
Yeah.
So in other words, it's a big time GLHF of a video game to anybody who wants to play it. Same thing with Genshin Impact.
Yes.
It's looking at it and like everything I like has been put in here, right? Meanwhile, have you seen this Grand Blue Fantasy Relink game, which just kind of looks like an 80s, 90s anime art?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'd play that. So maybe it's just something to do with the 2010s, 2020s anime, VTuberesque anime style. I like the word VTuberesque. It's VTuberesque. There's just something about that anime style, that Purikura sticker blasted anime style that it falls off my wavelength.
Yeah.
I'm talking word salad here about this thing, but I see it and I'm just like, what a thing to exist. The fact that there's a game company called Hoyoverse now. God.
Yeah.
You got to YOLO first and then you can Hoyoverse, right?
Yeah. Hoyoverse sounds like what the Seven Dwarves would have come up with for the place where they keep Snow White. The Snow White and the Huntsman extended universe. All right, I got one.
Yeah.
Vernal Edge, that is a Metroidvania. It's an Egavania, I would say.
I wonder if I played that one.
And there's a lot of blocking and parrying, but it's very smooth. But the movement is a bit too game makery, if you understand. It's a little slidey.
Oh, yeah.
All the edges are a bit rough, very talky, but not super interesting in its talkiness. And the gating is imprecise. So you got this little hub world, which is you're in an airship and you're flying around in 3D space to then get into these 2D Vania zones. But the gating is weird because you can get really far in one of those worlds before realizing you can't progress because you don't have the thing, or suspecting that you can't progress. Or sometimes you can use some other skills that you have to sort of cheese it, but then you really can't progress because you weren't supposed to be able to do that, etc. So I almost beat the whole game and then I kind of just stopped playing. It's all right, but it's it's not all the way there. So I realized that I had played it for like 10 hours and had nothing to say about it. No offense.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this show, I'm sorry.
Played 4 or so hours of it. And, I played.
It's not bad. It's pretty good, I would even say.
Yeah, it's a game that I would say if you are scrolling down Steam and you see it and you watch just a video clip of it, and if you feel anything Wonder Boy, Monster World 4, Veldeselba Senki, in the airships, maybe if you're a fan of Veldeselba Senki. I know a lot of people listen to this show are. Guardian Heroes, there's some Sega Saturn-esqueness to it. There's a little bit of Skyblazer in there, right? It's got so much stuff going on that if you see the price, which it's $16.99, if you see the price, or if it's on sale, and you think you want to encourage some people to make more stuff like this,
go ahead and get it.
Yeah, go ahead and get it because it's there's enough stuff there. And it is, Metroidvania is one of its popular user-defined tags.
Mm-hmm.
I bought this game like immediately. I was aware of it a little. I was made aware of it via some little GIFs on Twitter and such, and I just had it on a list, and I was ready to get it when it came out. It pulls from enough non-standard influences for Metroidvanias. It's worth chilling with. Metroidvanias are just the easiest game. They're the easiest genre to play, to turn on.
Yeah, to get into.
Or they should be. If the intro is too long, if you have too much story at the beginning of a Metroidvania, that's not good.
There is a bit of that
There's
here.
a bit in this one, yeah. But ideally, they should all be like Hollow Knight. They should be pretty clean in the beginning and just get you right into Metroidvania.
Yeah. And I did a whole bunch of the Metroidvania-ing with this, and I had a pretty good time. Despite the things I said, I think you could go ahead and get it. Just know those things going in. It's basically like a Vania, except all your battles, 100% of the battles are in little arenas. So you are your battles can have a little more precision, a little more dodging around, but they've got like all these magic attacks. Really, only 2 or 3 of them are ones that you actually want. It's one of those kinds of things, but it's pretty decent. So go ahead. All right, what's your next one, Tim?
My next one. Let me think. Let's take a look. I don't have too many more on here.
I could just run through the rest of mine if you want.
We just do a good old blast.
Yeah.
Did we talk about Starfield yet? That's a joke. Honkai Star Rail was my good one that I really wanted to talk about. So, Did you play Pikmin 4?
No.
Neat game.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say about Pikmin 4. Have you ever played a Pikmin game, listener? If not, and you've ever been interested, just try this one.
Mm-hmm.
Just give it a shot. It's that fancy hotel feeling. You know, there's been so much attention to detail lavished on user experience and game design. There's so much wisdom. You can feel the benevolence of some actual senior citizens in there in the design, right? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a pretty good one. You want to blast?
Yeah. Endless Dungeon. First of all, on PS5, immediately crashed when I opened it. It just crashed immediately.
Oh, so it looks like the title was a lie, much like the cake in Portal.
A big lie.
Thank you.
The premise is basically an action tower defense roguelike. That's a fun idea, but ultimately it's all escort missions kind of. The story is a little forced. You place resource generators, turrets, and whatever, and then you have to move the thing that you need to defend around as it moves to different locations while you're defending with these turrets.
Yeah.
But, it's fun for a little while. I think it would have been better if they didn't say endless in the title and they just went ahead and made specific dungeon.
Endless, like their little series they have.
Yeah, it
going.
is. It is. So maybe they should have done a different one. But anyway,
I workshopped it before the first one.
That game was okay. I guess people think there's not enough stuff to unlock, but it's fun for a while. That's fine. Next one, Merge and Blade. It's another one of those merging type puzzle things where you match guys to turn them into units, the bigger units to fight baddies. I wouldn't normally get into these, but it's made by Magic Cube from Korea, who is a dev that I like, so I gave it a shot. Still has that kind of mobile game vibe. They were primarily mobile games developers, but they did premium mobile games, and once that became basically impossible, they moved over to Steam and still made mobile games. Doesn't seem to have done super well. Actually, I wish I could play it on my phone. It's simple in a pretty good way, but that is a way that doesn't do well on Steam, and it's also not on Switch or anything. So, but my one complaint is when you're merging dudes, you can't get two complaints. One, don't seem to get bonuses for doing combos, which you should. And the other thing is it's missing the ability to delete a unit, which I feel like is critical for this sort of game. So, but it was fine. I played through like half of it.
Yeah, I'd never heard of this game. I'm looking at it on Steam right now, and it's like, I'd play this.
Yeah, it's an easy thing to just put on. It's one of those things where you can just be like, all right.
My question is, does this game go a million billion weird, wacky, wild places with its seemingly simple premise?
Absolutely not. And that's the thing. That's the thing.
Imagine a game like this that goes full Void Stranger at some point.
Yeah, that's what they should have done in the beginning.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you can't. I think
not
you
in the beginning.
Can't just do that,
No.
right? If people could just do that.
Well, I think that these guys probably could have because they're pretty smart. But anywho, next, Lords of the Fallen. This is another Soulsy. It's got big graphics.
Yeah.
But it has weird as heck VF.
I skipped over this game.
I think you were right too, because
it's like $60 and I'm looking at like wow, here we go. I'm on Steam.
Yeah.
It's got one of these on it and it's people listening. Like I'm sure that half of our audience knows exactly what image I'm about to paste into the host only chat of the insert credit special Discord server to show Brandon after saying it's got one of these on the Steam store. It's got one of these, which is an AI generative fill looking sort of the box art with the 16:9 dragged out on either side of it and a million Cannes Film Festival Palme d'Or sort of
and
Laurel Holly Caesar crowns.
We should point out who they are. There's IGN and Shack News, which you can understand, but then there's PC Invasion, Fextra Life, Game Spew, and Game Tyrant. Those are the top ones.
So here's the thing. One thing that I'm proud of as a 45-year-old, I'm going to be 45 years old, since you round up by more years as you get older.
Basically 50.
I'm going to be 50 years old in 4 months.
Yeah.
Right. So let me tell you something. One thing I'm proud of is that I look at this and the one my eye goes straight to is Fextra Life.
Yeah.
Because those guys do know these games.
Oh, all right.
Right. Like they are the dudes for talking about these, for like doing a review of a Souls game. Again, the post criticism continuum.
Yeah.
Fextra Life being a kind of starting, if I get this wrong, any representatives of Fextra Life, feel free to correct me. But Fextra Life starting as like a Dark Souls tips YouTube channel turned into the place to go when you want to know, is one of these games pretty good? There's also this guy Iron Pineapple who I don't believe he does
numbers.
He does numerical scores, so his name wouldn't be on here, but you can also trust him if he says a Souls-like is pretty good.
So for me, I was playing it, and it's got this really weird VO that feels like it was done by AI, and it has a neat look, but I found myself... what I wrote here is, has a neat look, but I just don't want to do this. And so that's where we wound up with it.
Yeah, this is definitely in my... And, I hate to use this phrase. We're just getting me out of my comfort zone today. I hate to use this phrase, but it doesn't pass the sniff test, is what I would say. I just posted another image that's of their free content plan, 2023, 2024. It's just got a whole bunch of, here's some stuff you're going to get if you buy the game.
Yeah.
And it's like, why don't you tell me, like, I don't know. They are telling me what the game is if I buy the game. It's probably a fine, decent video game, but it's like, I don't know. Well, maybe not. I don't know. It's got mixed reviews on Steam, 19,000 mixed reviews.
It's got really good skulls and skeletons in it, is what I would say. That's
looks cool.
The best thing about it.
I'm looking at some of these images, like some of this is like the metalist looking stuff. It is definitely like way more metal album cover looking than
for sure.
A lot of these Souls games are, like kind of to a point where, it's, I would use the word effortlessly to describe how metal-esque the image I just pasted in here is.
Yeah.
Like, that is heavy metal as heck, dude. I mean, obviously not effortless. There's tons and tons of work, character design and such in here.
Oh, yeah. Much effort was done.
But it's like, you look at it and it's just like, oh, they get it, right? Yeah. So it's like, there was a lot of that, but it's just like, I couldn't sense anyone saying anything that made me want to play it.
Yeah.
There's
not a particular newness to it, I wouldn't say.
But again, I'm a guy who is able to enjoy stuff. I'd probably have a good time with it, but it's like I'm going to wait for it to be like $12 in like 2 years and play it in 360 frames per second on my HDMI 3 8K TV or whatever. It's probably what I'm going to do.
So I played the new Call of Duty campaign.
Oh, yeah.
As I always do. And it was fine. The ending was super dumb, though. It was just over inconclusively. It had no big set pieces throughout the whole thing, except for stuff you've done before, like shoot down from a vehicle in the air from a plane, and you got you got missiles, you got your regular shots, you got your 10 millimeters. That was basically it. So it's clear that they're over the idea of innovating in single player. I enjoyed it, as I do all the Call of Duty's single players, but it felt like one of the weakest. And what it made me think is that I would really like, and I don't know if anybody else wants this, I would really like a single player Call of Duty collection that collects the single player campaigns from recent times and gave it to me on a disc without any of the rest of the stuff. Because you have to dig through series of menus to get to the single player, to even know that it's there at this point, because they're trying to make it such a live service situation. But anyway, it was fine. People didn't like that it had the same weapons as last time. I honestly don't care about that. I care if they do anything cool with it, and they didn't do that either. So, honk.
Yeah.
My next one, Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader. This is funny because I had no idea how to play this game, and the game 100% did not care. It is just a massive PC game. I had to look up how to attack. It's a tactics game. I had to look up how to attack enemies because the game didn't tell me, and I couldn't figure it out. And it's such a PC game. There's such a gap between PC games and console games that nobody who played it was confused. So there was nobody to answer the question. But the answer was, there's a bullet in the very busy UI. You click that bullet, and then you click an enemy in order to attack them.
Oh, that makes sense.
That was fine, but just tell me.
I feel like I would have gotten that eventually. That's maybe not true, though.
I mean, I did get it eventually because I had to, because I figured it out, but like, come on, just let me know. I was like, this game's not for me. They're showing me that it's not for me. I'm not going to play it anymore. And then I didn't. And then the last thing, this is maybe a little gauche, but I played Hyper Gunsport again. I beat my own game all the way through on Xbox. And, it's not that bad. It's a pretty good game. It's pretty fun. I realize we launched that game at a price that was more than people wanted to pay for it. I think that that's a fair assessment of what happened. But there's a lot of stuff in that game. It's pretty fun. It's a game you can run through in a couple hours in single player and maybe have a good time. So what I would say to people is, if the graphics or the vibe look at all appealing to you, wait for it to come down to a price that you're comfortable with, and then buy it, because we're going to keep putting it on sale forever. So, just give it a look once it gets cheap enough for you. Whatever number that is, I don't mind. I don't judge anybody. If that number is free in the upcoming itch.io bundle for medical relief for Gaza, then that's fully acceptable.
Free.
Well, it's not free, but it's essentially free.
I know what you mean. You get 1,000 video games for whatever you're willing to pay.
So that's what I got. That's all my things. I did it.
Okay, so I have a couple more video games I played that I think are good. Basically, we're going to leave this as, go ahead and just Google it. This Chants of Sennaar game. You know that one? It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that looked cool.
Game's pretty neat.
Yeah, this was absolutely one that I wanted to play, and then I didn't. And that's what happened.
Neat, weird, kooky, weird.
That's what happened.
Big old weird, big old game full of stuff and ideas.
Yeah.
And surprisingly easily playable. This Jusant game about climbing a mountain made by the Life is Strange people. Y'all know that one?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Neat game as well. Makes it about the climbing. Every time I'm playing Tactica and it starts to rain and my guy slips down the mountain, I think fondly of what if there was a whole game about climbing a mountain?
Yeah.
There is. Hitman, World of Assassination, Freelancer mode, I mentioned briefly during the Game of the Year podcast. That's definitely a new game. That's a new video game. Mm-hmm. It's a mode, but it's a game. They just roguelikeify the whole Hitman experience. But the most important game that I want to mention is a video game that I feel bad about it not coming up during the real podcast, during the real episode. And it was like, I kind of thought maybe Brandon would bring this up, and then I wanted to, and by the time we only had a couple left, I didn't feel like putting it out there. So we ended up with Starfield on the list, etc.
Yeah.
And that is a game called Paranormasight. Do you know this game?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't play it. I know that I was supposed to.
Oh yeah. Well, it's really good, and it should have been on. This is I came into this recording today intending to bring this game up last.
Yeah.
As the game that probably just should have been on our list.
Yeah.
And it should have been pretty high up.
No, I was supposed to play this according to my internal code, and I didn't do it.
My internal, I gotta play this. Sort of like the part of you that plays video games kind of for fun.
Yeah, that guy who plays video games for fun kind of got subsumed by the necessity of playing games for a variety of professional lists that I had to be involved in. So that's how we wound up with what we wound up with from me.
The thinking about this video game, it's like I'm pretty sure that at some point between us recording this podcast and it being published or put out next Monday, 1 week from the day of the recording, usually it's a shorter turnaround. You know, this time we've built in a whole week of not remembering what we said on this episode. I'll remember.
Yeah.
Sometime between us recording this and it being posted, someone in one of my inboxes will take me to task about not including this game in our Game of the Year list. So that person is feeling very foolish right now.
Yes.
Check the timestamp on your message. Is it before 6:24 or 6:42 p.m. Eastern Time, United States time zone, on February 12th, 2024? If not, you're yelling at the wrong guy, Charles.
Yeah.
You're yelling at the wrong guy.
Yeah.
I'm now looking in the Goblin Bunker insert credit show thread on the Action Button Discord, and no one has mentioned it yet. So that's good.
It was mentioned many times on the insert credit forums in everyone's kind of like... They did a Game of the Year.
They mentioned it here, too. It was mentioned frequently in the Game of the Year thread.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I assume there's a thread. Someone, the most recent comment here on the insert credit show thread in the Action Button Discord is from Juliet, and it is, I was happy that Void Stranger got discussed. For what it's worth, I hate puzzle games. Void Stranger still grabbed me incredibly, incredibly hard. So if it can win me over, it can probably do that for just about anyone. And I'm seeing that and I'm like, I'm glad someone's happy that Void Stranger got discussed. And I'm sad about the person who's going to be upset that Paranormasight did not get discussed, because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Not everybody has had a chance to. We're recording this on the day that the previous episode went out. So not everybody's listened to it yet. I know some people listen. Some people tell me they listen Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So hopefully you've made it all the way to the next episode to know. I wish I would have brought that game up, because the more I think about it, and I'm like, we put Final Fantasy 16 at the very top.
Yeah,
that's
whoops.
Weird.
It's odd. You know, it's odd.
But also, what a world we live in now, where you can play a game like Paranormasight put out by Square Enix. I mean, I was even going to say, I was like, Square Enix made one of the best games they've ever made this year. And I said on an episode a few weeks ago
Yeah.
as like a reference to this game.
Right.
And I was going to say that it was a reference to Octopath Traveler, but then at the end of the episode say, actually, I'm talking about Paranormasight was going to be like the punchline there, but instead it got left hanging, which is maybe even funnier. But yeah, play that game. It's just crazy that we live in an era where you can just buy that game, a game like that in the English language and play it on your PC or your Steam Deck or your, whatever.
Your Nintendo Switch even.
Yeah, you play it on your device and it's in English. We've got a remake of Ghost Trick as well.
Yeah.
You can play a bunch of Chunsoft games. You can play 428 Shibuya Scramble. Did you ever play that one?
I never did, but I was always told that I should.
Well, it's available now on Steam and I think some consoles, but it's available now.
Yeah, I saw when that happened.
It's been available for quite some time, but it's like the fact that game is released in English, that's bonkers. You got those Zero Escape games, the Danganronpa games, right?
Yeah.
You got so many games available to you, the people under age 45 of the year 2024. If you ever feel like acquiring a little empathy for the boomers or whatever, know that I'm actually a little bit angry that you get to play these games that I wished I could have played that were not available because I didn't speak Japanese at the time. Or, the fact is like these games that we were just wishing would get translated or released, or these games we didn't have the glory to, we didn't have the glorious experience of even knowing about Linda Cube, much less having a translation available to play. So anyway, this Paranormasight is like, it has all the crystallized, beautiful juiciness of the games that were forbidden to us personally in the 1990s. Yeah. Right. The games that we wanted, but then also it does new stuff. It's just a gorgeous little thing. It's a weird little thing and a gorgeous little thing. And I feel the way about it that a lot of people I personally know feel about 13 Sentinels, which is a game that did you play 13 Sentinels?
I did. And it, the rough thing I felt with 13 Sentinels was everything that was blowing everyone's mind was stuff I had seen a lot before. And it was not, it just didn't, also the tactical battles were like, I never say anything's too easy, but but these were just like, knock me down with a feather.
I mean, I still think the game's neat, and as a piece of design, I can, put my hands on my hips and admire it, I guess, as a piece of design. If only I had some foot pedal controller to play my video games with. Yeah. Which is good. I could play all these games I could play Paranormasight with my feet while eating dinner. It's
a good idea.
That's a prospect. Yeah. Only. Anyway, I believe, is that enough?
That's enough.
I think it's enough of a show. It's more than enough of a show.
We've done it. Yeah, we did plenty, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's all the games that existed last year.
Yeah, there weren't any others, so good for us.
Not true. There's more.
No, there was a whole bunch. There was a bunch that we missed that were probably really cool, and sorry. I'm sorry about it. I'm a little sorry.
Yeah, there's probably like 14 more Square Enix games. Like they probably released like Dio Field Chronicle 2, Triangle Strategy 3. Yeah. These things probably came out last year. Because Square Enix is, there's something wrong with them over there.
There is. I didn't play World of Horror for some reason. I just didn't do it yet. Probably will.
Square Enix they've got a case of golden diarrhea. Yeah, is what they've got. Yeah, they've got golden diarrhea over there,
and it's not helping them out.
It's not.
No, it's not helping them out.
How do they stop? They can't stop. Yeah, that's enough diarrhea references for a podcast episode, isn't it?
Yeah, at least for this one. All right. Well, yeah. Let's be done. Everyone should join the forums, and they should follow us on the YouTubes and all that kind of stuff. Wishlist Demon School and see if it's better than Persona 5 Tactica, LOL.
Everybody get on the discord.gg/action button and post in the for an upcoming new segment on this show. Post in the Insert Credit Show thread, or the thread in the Goblin Bunker channel at around 2 p.m. Eastern on every Thursday. And there's a chance that one of us will see your comment while recording the show, and it might end up getting mentioned on accident, which could be fun.
Yeah, anything's possible.
Try it out.
Anything's possible.
That's all the audience interaction you're going to get.
We did it.
Or is it?
We did it. Yeah. Let's be done.
Oh, yeah, we say the end of the show. That's the end of the show. I'm Tim Rogers.
I'm Brandon Sheffield.
And
Paranormasight GOTY 2023.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah, but check it out.
I think it's funny that it was Final Fantasy 16. It's not right.
Yeah, it is pretty funny.
But it is funny.
Because there were too many good games. It's like a statement.
Yeah.
There were too many good games, so we had to pick this one.
Mm-hmm. They forced our hand.
Yeah, it was the sacrifice we had to make.
Yeah.
Which is what you have to do sometimes to save the world.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's right.
Anyway, that's all we've got time for. I didn't even use my soundboard, so hold on. What do we got? Hold on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, very good.
Very
That's a good one, right? What about this?
I love it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, the end.
The end.
There's people out there getting paid for this. Did you know that?
Yeah, it's man.
People out there getting goddamn ripped. They're getting ripped.
I want to get paid.
I don't know if that's actually what they're getting. They're getting ripped. Like they're getting shredded, building huge muscles, just making podcasts.
Yeah.
It's the only currency that matters. Big muscles.
Sounds nice. BMs.